this clip. They thought this was good advertising for their show.
Oh, this isn't somebody watched it and took it.
This is right from The View.
So they were like, this is a hot one.
This is a hot take that they need to share with their audience.
Because I love when we have a View clip and it's, it's not really a watchable show, but every so often you find somebody watch it and made fun of it. So I guess they've hired people to do that for us.
Yeah. To
get the mockable
They've
clips.
hired people they have a social media person to clip it for us so we don't have to do the work.
Okay.
Hey, here's something stupid everybody should make fun of. You ready? So what you're about to see here is 5 genius hot takes. So if you're not ready to have your mind blown, stop watching now.
Thank you for the warning, Jimmy.
Okay, here we are.
Apparently, millennials and Gen Z have a much different view of the American dream than past generations. Data shows that soaring inflation, student debt, and limited room for advancement in the workplace has made them feel that milestones like affording a home, starting a family, excelling within the corporate structure are out of reach. Does every generation feel this way at some point? I say yes. What do you think?
Well, since we're sticking with our Clinton theme today, it's the economy, stupid. Like, my generation is the generation of the housing crisis, the financial crisis, 9/11. We've been in war basically my entire generation. You've got 45% of people ages 18 to 29 living with their parents. Our American dream's different. Doesn't mean other struggles didn't matter, but on the having kids specifically,
she just said, a woman on The View just said, our dream is different. We struggle. How much less do you get paid than Whoopi? Exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk of her millennial struggles.
Yeah. Are you really struggling with your generation? I don't think your generation struggle are your struggles, right? I mean, how much is it?
You've heard on Twitter or X or whatever it's called?
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
I get it. Most of my friends, if they're not, married by a certain age, they're not owning homes at the same rate, and you don't want to have kids if you don't feel like you can provide that. My one piece of advice, though, to millennials who are holding off having kids because of the finances, if you're in a position, which is also expensive, consider freezing your eggs because you could change that position later and want.
Great.
Okay.
Should I freeze my eggs, Jimmy?
Well, Kurt, let me ask you this. If they have 30 grand to freeze their eggs, I don't think they're worrying about buying a house.
I would think that, but I'll bet you there's never enough money, so you're like, yeah, I can afford a house and to freeze my eggs, but is it the big enough house?
Is it? Well,
cold enough eggs?
So the first great tip coming out of The View already on this segment, consider freezing your eggs.
What about those of us whose eggs are already frozen?
Okay, here we go.
But no, it's hard. It is a very real struggle out there.
I think it's refreshing to see people enter parenthood so soberly, because I think for generations since the beginning of time, people.
Is it as refreshing as a pair of eggs though? As a frozen pair of eggs though? Is it?
I don't know.
How refreshing are we talking?
Frozen eggs refreshing?
Let me just say, hey, Einstein McGirl boss, how are the gays going to get kids if the breeders aren't making them?
Oh, you didn't play her saying that part yet.
Oh, let me say, okay, let me get
married. They just have babies because they're supposed to, and this is what we do. And then you see people like gay couples who fight so hard just to love a baby, and every day people are.
It's hard for them to love babies.
They have to fight through their hatred of babies. The gay couples, they want to have kids, but they hate them. That's what it sounded like she was saying.
As when Glenn comes back, Glenn, did you have to fight your hatred of babies to have kids?
I think you can always adopt. Anyway, okay.
And kids that
let's back it up a little.
Supposed to, and this is what we do. And then you see people like gay couples who fight so hard just to love a baby, and every day people are having kids that some are beaten and like not taken care of, and so
that took a turn.
So people are having kids, and some of those kids get beaten, and I don't know. I don't really follow poor people shit, is what I hear her saying.
I heard a couple of things.
I heard a couple of people beat their kid.
I have 3 images in my head of what that all is, and I'm out. Now I'm out.
I have a generation that says, I don't know if I can give them the life they deserve. I don't know if I'm capable of being a whole person and doing this.
Hey, Tip, you're not. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Say bravo, because it is not a slight undertaking.
That was my takeaway. I mean,
Okay. Here
my
comes
generation,
Sonny.
I mean, you got married, you tried to get a house, and you had kids. And this seems to be very intentional. They're thinking
Yeah.
about it. And I agree with you,
Those
though.
millennials are brilliant.
Your eggs start turning to dust. And so you have
Hey, Sonny, if parts of your body are turning to dust, it means you're a vampire. Okay.
to be careful. And so if you're a young person and you have any kind of chance of freezing your eggs, which wasn't available to me when I was, your age.
Can I just
Centuries ago, before she was bitten.
Can I just say that they are really bringing back hair on The View?
Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
There is that 80s hair is back and in full function, and
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. That takes a lot of work. This takes more work than you think.
It's like raising a kid.
That looks like it. Sometimes they tease their hair. Sometimes
Hey.
they beat their hair.
Someone tell the blonde one to think about having her eggs thawed. Am I right?
Okay.
I think that you got to at least preserve the opportunity because you may change your mind.
I'm sorry.
She said
One kid is enough.
Yeah,
Well,
one kid.
but
Joy Behar. This was one kid is enough. Now I can see why they call her Joy.
Yeah.
Huh? Joy, one kid is enough for what? For her to eat in her gingerbread house? Joy, she filled up on Hansel and didn't save enough room for Gretel, is what I think she's saying. Okay, now here comes the real meat and potatoes of the segment.
Yeah.
Here comes Whoopi.
The anchor.
Yeah, the anchor. Here's the cleanup hitter.
But
One kid is
listen,
enough.
every generation comes and wants to do better than their parents did.
Since when? Okay,
First I'm hearing of this.
first I'm hearing of this.
Every generation. But I'm sorry, if you only want to work 4 hours, it's going to be harder for you to get a house.
Oh, and don't mention 4 days.
So she's right. Oh.
These generations want to do better than Whoopi, but do better, and Whoopi is sick of it.
Yeah, she's had enough.
Hey, I'm sorry, kids. If you want basic shit in America, you got to work as hard as Whoopi. Here we go.
I feel for everybody that feels this, but I'm sorry. We busted our behinds. We had to bust our behinds because we didn't have the
Y'all
option
gave
of
us the
going
housing
back.
crisis, though.
We
But
didn't- listen, we had all kinds of stuff.
no, it's true. But the one
So if you want basic shit in America, Kurt, you got to work as hard as Whoopi. And by that, I mean, change your last name to sound Jewish because your grandma gave you advice that would get most people canceled today.
I thought she was Jewish until you told me on the show that she's not.
Whoopi's clout claiming she worked hard. Whoopi, I've never seen Whoopi work hard enough to even hold in a fart on her own show. 90% of television is holding in your farts. Whoopi can't even do that most days.
I've seen like 3.
3 times she's farted on the show.
I can remember 3, but maybe I remember in 2 and it felt like 3.
Yeah.
You know, each one goes a long way.
Yeah. I'm right on camera.
Yeah.
So here, she won't even work that hard. So here she is going to tell you how hard she works.
What's happening?
thing I'd say is millennials are statistically the first generation that's likely to do worse off than their parents. That's
You know what? That's what they said to us as well. Every
Yeah, I
The
don't think
Goldberg family.
I don't think that is what I've never heard that before until now.
Didn't she come out in the comedy boom of the 80s
That's-
when literally anyone could walk in?
Anybody could make a living as a
And
stand-up.
just,
In the 80s, if you could put on a suit coat and push it up the sleeves, they would give you $500 a show.
yeah, that was like the birth of the holding deal.
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
generation is told you're going to do worse than your parents.
They're not. No, she's making that up. That's not what they were told.
Where do
Every
you live?
generation did better than not because they worked harder, but because the greater economic system was there for them. How about we wiped out the manufacturing base in Europe during World War II? So then Americans got unions and good jobs, and we didn't have to compete with there was all kinds of stuff. Can you turn the AC?
Yeah, well, they didn't have to have like 3 jobs
That's right.
working as someone's butler part-time on like Postmates, and you got to get like 3 app jobs to live, or just like go into porn, start your own porn business.
Do it OnlyFans.
Yeah.
You know what? People pick it up and they do what they do and they raise themselves. And this is what you got to do. It's called being a good citizen.
Ah.
You know who Horatio Alger is?
So she didn't put. I don't have the clip of her saying you millennials want to work 4 hours.
Yeah,
said
she
it
just
earlier.
said
she
at the
said
top
it?
of it.
They don't want to work more than 4 hours.
They don't want to work more than 4 hours. So let me just give you a little. It's a myth that baby boomers have a stronger work ethic than later generations. This is from October 11, 2016. This is from Science Daily. Now, you can't question this because through COVID, all those people on the View said you can't question science. You have to trust it. So you have to trust this. This is true no matter what you think.
This cutting edge is daily science.
There is no truth to the popular belief that members of the so-called baby boomer generation have a greater work ethic than people born a decade or two later. This is according to scientists who completed a comprehensive analysis of relevant studies.
By the way, there's these generation names like I'm a boomer, I'm a Gen X. Those are white people, college or at least college educated. That's a certain class that uses those. I don't know a lot of black people like I'm a boomer. I'm a zoomer. Like you must have done well in life to even get to be in those categories. Everybody else is just the great unwashed masses.
What's more, according to a Youth and Money in the USA poll by CNBC and Generation Lab, over half of 18 to 34-year-olds think it's much harder to purchase a home now or get promoted at work. Well, it certainly is a lot harder to purchase a home now.
Who says
So
it's
when
not?
Steph purchased her first house in Pasadena, you know how much money she had to put down for a house in Pasadena? 20 grand, eh? That was
What?
it. That's what she had to put down for a house with a backyard and a garage.
That's not in Detroit.
That's right. That's in Pasadena.
Yeah.
So,
In 97.
and so today to buy that, and that was in 1997. To buy that same house today, you know how much cash you'd have to come up with to buy that? At least 300 grand to put down on that house just to buy it. 300 grand, eh? That's a lot of money.
Well,
So you could always scrape together 20 grand. You could always get, hey, my parents, my grandparents, or go, sell your ass on the corner. You could come up, you could do that. You could scrape by and, eat bugs for a year and save 20 grand and go get a house. You could have done that. You could
not
do
me.
that.
My job at the Jimmy Dore show is only 4 hours a day.
It's more than a niggling feeling. That word makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's more than a niggling feeling. Research consistently shows that on average, Generation Z and millennials really are worse off than their parents.
Why
Let's
would
look.
you need special research to know that?
That's crazy.
How on earth would you not have guessed that without a special?
We've been saying this on this that 80% of workers live paycheck to paycheck. Some people quibble with that number, but with mortgage rates around 8% and home prices on the rise, housing affordability is actually worse now than during the disastrous 2008 financial crash. At the same time, salaries are lagging behind. In the last 50 years, home prices have jumped 118% after accounting for inflation. So if you add inflation, they're way more expensive. But even if you take inflation out of it, houses are now over 100% more expensive than they were. While income has only increased 15%.
Well, we can get that number down, can't we?
According to the Clever Real Estate based on census data. It's why young workers today are holding down not one, not two, but 3 or more jobs to keep up with the rising cost of living. 93% of Gen Z do what they call poly work. That's a really weird way of saying that they have 3 and 4 jobs.
I actually think you should be allowed to have as many genders as you have jobs.
Compared to 28%, only 28% of baby boomers worked multiple jobs and 23% of Gen X professionals. 93% of Gen Zers. Keep voting for Democrats and Republicans, you morons.
You lazy kids.
Too lazy to not vote. Unsurprisingly, being called lazy by Goldberg, who was paid $8 million per year for her ABC chat show, hasn't landed well with young people online who have branded the star as out of touch. You think she's out of touch?
Yeah, and by the way, your last name is Stolen Valor.
Whoopi doesn't work on Fridays, is done with work by noon, gets a month off in the summer paid, and several weeks around major holidays paid, but is telling millennials that they don't want to work.
Well, she works out too.
Whew, President Biden is hearing it from all sides over his handling of the Israel-Hamas war. Republican Senator Tom Cotton, who's on Intelligence and Armed Services Committee, says Biden needs to focus more on the enemy.
I have to say, it seems like President Biden puts more pressure on Israel than he does on Hamas and its hosts in Qatar. Part of the reasons why we got to this point where we had to have a 4-day pause is the Biden administration has consistently behind the scenes insisted that Israel's government take steps that are clearly not in Israel's interest. For instance, providing fuel into Gaza, not just water or food or medicine, but fuel, which may as well be providing them with ammunition.
Some on the far left of Biden's own political party say he's too soft on Israel. His overall approval among Democrats now is 75% in one new poll. But it drops to 60% on his handling of the war. Republican Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida, member of the Armed Services, Foreign Affairs, and Intelligence Committees, also a former Green Beret commander. We appreciate his being with us and always for your service as well. So where does the far left want Biden to be on a bunch of serial killers? Like they want him to hang out with them?
Yeah, Harris, but I think you have to appreciate the propaganda war and the psychological warfare that Hamas is, I think, fairly successfully waging here. I mean, they're presenting themselves right now as some kind of humanitarian, as you have these Hallmark type moments as they hand the hostages back. They presented themselves as the victim. Can I just point out one number that is just driving me nuts? Is this casualty figure that the mainstream media has taken on as gospel, this 12,000 to 14,000 Palestinian casualties compared to the 1,500 Israelis. Why are we taking that number and running with it? We wouldn't believe that coming from ISIS. We certainly wouldn't believe it coming from Putin, but yet the media is running that, which makes it seem like a disproportionate response. And then you have years and years of kind of victimhood and the Palestinians as part of the oppressed. And you're seeing all of that come to fruition right now. And the left is giving Biden hell. And when you have leaks coming from the White House saying we're taking on a lot of political water here, I worry about Biden getting weak-kneed in its support of Israel.
So I'll pile on a little bit more. You talk about, some in the media, the legacy and liberal media, taking Hamas's word for everything or anything.
Right.
But we know that there were just unthinkable, unspeakable sex crimes, even with children, on October 7th. Where are the women at the United Nations? Where are these groups that say that they care about what happens to women and children in particular, all groups of people? I mean, maybe I missed something over Thanksgiving, but I don't think so.
I've horribly seen this my entire career, from the Taliban to ISIS to Al Qaeda and Hamas. They use rape as a weapon.
field as well. And so typically, for decades, any consultant kind of looks at that race and says, too bad. Like, that's it. It's done. Like, it's basically impossible for somebody with that level of both establishment and progressive support, that amount of money, that access to that much more money coming down the road, that much name recognition, the fact that it's a special election, it's going to be a low turnout. Forget it. You cannot beat this person at this point. DMFI comes in with millions and says, no, maybe we can. And one reason I think and they end up actually, so May 2021, to put the timeline on there, is when one of the previous Gaza wars begins. And so that played a huge role because it also kind of galvanized the Jewish vote, Jewish pro-Israel vote in that particular district. And there was this extremely impressive kind of organizing campaign in neighborhoods in the district that saw turnout in the primary exceed average turnout in the rest of the district by something like 10 times, like just absolutely blew it out of the water. And a lot of Republicans and independents, switched because in that primary they were able to switch.
And they were openly advocating for people to do so, calling around and saying, we've just got to stop Nina Turner.
And they would say, say she's endorsed.
Yeah.
The evidence for why you had to block Nina Turner is that she's endorsed by Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, and she says that she'll be a member of the squad. Like that. That was her. That was the whole argument, and there was no sense that there needed to be any further explanation after that. Like that's it. Like that's enough reason that we're going to take her out, and it shows how quickly that was resonating in that community. That there wasn't in the messages that were circulated. There was no sense that you needed more than that. Like Ilhan Omar, she likes Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar likes her. Rashida Tlaib likes her. She cannot go to Congress.
So that was a.
Welcome to another episode of the Post Duopoly Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Keaton? What's up, Kit?
What's going on, gentlemen?
Hey, it's been a while. It's good to be back. Sorry I've been absent.
Yes.
A lot of stuff's happening.
Yeah, I was just going to update people. Also, Kit, that Russell's sick and Nick, same thing, internet issue. So maybe we could try to look up for backup times in the daytime, maybe. But so it'll be the three of us. All of us are still represented, but the three of us tonight. But Kit, let everybody know where you've been. They've been like, where has Kit been? What you want to tell them?
Well, as much as I can say, because you guys know it, and my colleague knows a little bit more details too. But I'll just gonna keep it short and simple. I've been doing a lot of housework and cleaning and taking care of personal issues. My grandfather, he recently passed away in February, and so October, November, I've been taking care of just a lot of personal stuff at hand, just to clear everything out and get it taken care of. A lot of housework, a lot of moving, a lot of throwing out, and it's been very arduous and emotional. It's been very taxing, and it's been a tough 2 months. But the outpouring of support that I've had from my viewing audience and from my friends Daniel and FaZe and Lauren and the entire Hardlands media audience and you guys as well has been absolutely humbling. So just sorry I've been late, but I'm back. So there you go. Yeah. And then I later on in the year in 2024, I got another announcement to make, but more on that once I have everything else settled out. But it's good to be hanging out with you too. And I know that RBN and Due Dissidents have been killing it. So you guys, as you should, keep on taking names and keep on winning. So always glad to collaborate with you guys.
Well, you as well, my friend, and you've been killing it too. I mean, you've been on. You just haven't been, on as much as usual, but you've still been putting in a hell of a lot of work, my friend. So don't sell yourself short. So your family is your family from the Chicago area too?
Yeah, born and raised. Actually, I found my great grandfather's World War I dog tag, and so I went to check him out a little bit further. Apparently, he was born in the city. So not only was he born in the city, but my grandfather, my mother, and myself. So our roots go back all the way to the 1800s. So
wow,
we've been here for some time. So Chicago is one hell of a town. So yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Been kicking it
All
with
right,
Al Capone here,
gentlemen.
guys. There. Yeah. Wow.
All right, gentlemen. So everybody, we're gonna be doing this a little bit different. We're gonna just have everybody come with their stories, and everybody leads their own sort of segment. And I'm starting with this, and I'll lead with this segment. And if you have receipts, let me, please insert them if you want. And we can start here, Aaron. So AIPAC has decided to go, or it made a sort of a public announcement. They're going after anyone who voices opposition, even in the slightest, even if they vote for everything that you want, they're going after them with $100 million campaign. So now in our spaces, we cover this, and Nick even did a video of this, but in our spaces, it just doesn't land the same way, Keaton and Kit, as it does in progressive spaces. Like, this is gigantic for them. This is humongous for them. And it's just, imagine your worst nemesis, you hearing, oh, they're taking steroids now. What?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, so that's the effect that is happening in the progressive Democrat sort of community. Can any of you speak to that, or could either of you speak to that? Do you notice, like, have you been watching content? I don't know if you watch other content, but like, I watch other progressive content or other content from progressives, and man, this is really landing. Like I've seen maybe 5 segments on each platform, so it's really something that's landing hard in their community. But I'll start with Kit and then go with Keaton. Have you heard about any of this or heard anything like this?
Well, wait, I'm sorry, you kind of broke out just a little bit. Can you repeat the first question again?
I was wondering if you and Keaton had been hearing sort of the same thing, or have the same sort of feeling that I'm having, that the news of AIPAC sort of doubling down or reinvesting in opposition to some of the progressive people, it kind of lands harder in the progressive community. And I'm wondering if you sort of get the same sort of feeling. Have you seen the same thing?
I think in comparison towards what we've seen earlier on, like if we want to go way back to the early 2000s, I've never seen it this aggressive before, because, when we see reports of the media now, or even at those who are ignoring the 14,000 dead Palestinians in Gaza, and anyone that's trying to bring it up, it's automatically dismissed as though it's fake news. And any progressive channel that is talking about it is hit harder than I've ever seen before. I've noticed that the censorship has intensified more so. And I'm surprised a lot of our channels are, knock on wood, still up on YouTube. Knocking on some wood right here, because we all have kind of called out more or less what's happening with the bombings in Gaza. If you're not seeing it, I mean, I've witnessed it. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of the pushback, especially on social media. And already, what have we seen already? Elon Musk visiting or having a tour with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Okay, what does that mean in the long run then for all of us who use Twitter or any other social media platform? I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen anything like this, but it's so blatantly out there. I'm concerned about it. Keaton, take it away.
Yeah, what do you think, Keaton?
Well, I mean, in particularly, a guy like Ryan Grimm obviously has that book on the Squad out right now. So this is really interesting timing for him. This is certainly existential. There might not be a sequel at this rate.
Right.
If AIPAC has their way, he's going to have to find something else to write about, possibly. Just a few things on this. It shows just how bloodthirsty the Israel lobby is. I mean, when Pramila Jayapal, this was before October 7th, when she called Israel a racist state. I think this was August or September. And then she got browbeaten by Hakeem Jeffries into taking that back. And then the House called a vote in response to her statement to affirm that Israel is not a racist state. And she ended up voting to call it not a racist state, along with 400 and some odd other members of the House. So when you talk about the targets of the Israel lobby now, you're talking about the Squad and a couple others. You're talking about 7 or 8 members. they have almost unanimous support in Congress, and it just shows what a flex this is, that they are willing to spend $100 million to go after the less than a dozen dissenters in the House. They will settle for nothing less than technical and absolute unanimous support for the Israeli state, no matter what. So that's one thing. This is very high stakes for progressives, and I think when CJ you're talking about progressives, you mean like Majority Report TYT kind of like squad invested progressives, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I could imagine, since October 7th, this job of doing this, 3 or 4 times a week, it's never been more difficult. It's never been more difficult emotionally. It's never been more difficult technically. Just the task of keeping up with all of the news. And obviously, it takes a toll on you seeing all this death and carnage and horror every day. Because of the difficult task of keeping up with things, I just haven't been watching much of bullshit progressive media. Like, I don't really have time for Sam Cedar nowadays. He's just not high on my list of priorities right now. But I would imagine that, yes, all of these progressive outlets who are invested in the squad are probably very concerned about this because, look, the Israel lobby is very, very powerful. They're very well funded. And some of these squad members are more vulnerable than others. So I won't go case by case because we don't want to be here all night on the first segment. But like AOC, I think, is pretty safe. I think she has the name ID to, hold her seat. Rashida Tlaib is very popular in her district, and it's a largely Muslim district. So I don't think AIPAC's money is going to mean a hell of a lot there. I think she'll be fine. Ilhan Omar could not be fine. Ilhan Omar almost lost her primary in 2022. That was an underreported story. Not a lot of people caught that. Yeah. That was based on the crime issue. She came within 4 or 5 points of losing a primary last time, so she could be vulnerable. Jamaal Bowman could be vulnerable. Yes. He represents Westchester County, which is a very, very largely Jewish county. And not that there isn't a progressive base in Yonkers and the Bronx and stuff, but there's a large Jewish vote there that could be swayed by the Israel lobby. And so he might be vulnerable as well. So when you look at it case by case, some of them are safe, some of them have nothing to worry about, but some of them do. And if you're invested in the project of building out the squad, then yeah, this is definitely a time where you're going to be pretty concerned.
And I would think, and I'll get right back to the video here. Sorry, guys. I was going to play it, but after you said that, I would think that that applies to most of the Bernie Sanders industrial complex that is in the media. Yeah. Because just think about it. If you were to take away AOC, my God, if you were to take away AOC, that lightning rod, what would their channels look like? Just monetary, if they're looking at it. That way, I'll let both of you respond to that, but let's listen to a little more. Yo, go ahead then. Go ahead.
Well, okay, so let's say AOC or any of these squad were to be removed, or either that majority were to get removed. It would be irrelevant because a lot of those channels that promoted AOC and the squad, they don't even show up on those channels anymore. TYT, when's the last time TYT is at AOC or any of the other squad members on? Because they can't report on them, and not to mention the same people that TYT, the outlet that made the squad what it is, the squad doesn't even respect them anymore. They don't even show up on that platform. TYT's time in the sun has long since passed. So it'd be irrelevant. I mean, if there might have been a point to where if TYT was smarter building its infrastructure and maybe holding the politicians accountable who they had in the Justice Democrats, we'd have a different conversation. But no, all what they could see was the dollars and suckering in people to helping them build up a movement that went nowhere.
Touche. That is a great point. Now I wanted to start with this. Steve, we're warming up to the Jamaal Bowman video. I promise it's not going to be too long of a segment. But there's a couple of videos I do want to play. Now, this was added last minute. I was just going to play the other 2 videos that I have, and then I saw this. I was like, wow. I was like, what? Because, like I said, this hits a lot harder in this community. But if you listen to what he's saying here is that they're going to be coming in with money, and a person like Nina Turner, listen to what, let me just go back just a little bit so we can listen to what sort of things they were doing towards her. Let me know if you want to stop. I can't see, just so give me a verbal cue.
So
here.
May 2021, to put the timeline on there, is when one of the previous Gaza wars begins. And so that played a huge role because it also kind of galvanized the Jewish vote, Jewish pro-Israel vote in that particular district. And there was this extremely impressive kind of organizing campaign in neighborhoods in the district that saw turnout in the primary exceed average turnout in the rest of the district by something like 10 times, like just absolutely blew it out of the water. And a lot of Republicans and independents, switched because in that primary they were able to switch.
And they were openly advocating for people to do so, calling around and saying, we've just got to stop Nina Turner.
And they would say,
Israel.
She's endorsed.
Yeah.
The evidence for why you had to block Nina Turner is that she's endorsed by Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, and she says that she'll be a member of the squad. Like that. That was. Like that was. Her,
let me pause it here because we have to make sure we're listening from the right framing. This is your own team, Keaton and Kit. This is not an opponent on an opposite team strategizing against you. This is your own team. So it begs the question, how is it, even to the two people that are on screen, to a lesser degree, Bree, because she's a Green Party voter, although she's open to at least having a conversation about voting for Democrats. Not herself, but just the general conversation.
Right.
Ryan is totally in on it. But again, I just thought that was a unique point to bring up. If any of you wanted to comment, please do.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's making a point there that kind of, fits his narrative, which is that, the Democratic Party on a whole is reformable. I mean, he's simplifying things an awful lot there by saying this only had to do with the fact that there was a Gaza war in May of 2021, which there was. I remember covering that on our audio show. That was before we were on YouTube or anything like that. But I do remember that. And I'm sure that was an issue. I'm sure that was a motivating factor for Democrats in that district, particularly, more PMC-aligned establishment Democrats who are very, very pro-Israel. I'm not saying he's wrong entirely and that wasn't a factor. But he's trying to make it sound now, in hindsight, that was the motivating factor, when obviously the motivating factor in that election was keeping Nina Turner out for a whole host of reasons. Shontel Brown is the DNC's puppet who they wanted in that seat. You had Hillary Clinton come out and endorse Shontel Brown. You had James Clyburn come out and endorse Shontel Brown. So there were dozens of reasons why the Democrats pulled out all the stops to block Nina Turner. I think he's kind of cherry picking this one issue and calling it a make or break when it really wasn't.
Can I also add in here something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't mean to interrupt you, but look, I remember not once but twice when Nina Turner was running for that position in Congress. And the second time that it really stood out the most was when AOC waited at the last minute to endorse Nina Turner, as did all the other squad. And I remember, I don't know if Due Dissidents got any pushback. I know, but Hardlands Media and RBN and Jimmy Dore, we definitely got pushback because we were telling Nina Turner, why are you running in a party that doesn't respect you? So Ryan Graham here is acting like, oh, Jesus, maybe I shouldn't have stuck a fork in the electrical socket. Like, no doubt. Are you coming to terms and realizing that, gee, maybe it was a huge waste of time from 2018 onwards? Now, look, I actually had some hope that maybe the Democratic Party could be reformed, but I was quickly educated and saw how much of a foolish idea that was. There's no reforming the Democratic Party, and any one of us that raised the alarm was vilified. We were called racist. We were called internal racist. We were called sexist or misogynist, or that we didn't understand the bigger picture, or that we were secretly Trump supporters, or some other kind of way to smear us. We have been proven correct that it's a waste of time to run the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party is just as corrupt as the Republican Party. They just have a fancy neoliberal mask in which they can hide themselves. But where can they hide now? Everybody sees it. Everybody's talking about it. In 2020, everybody in the DNC and Vote Blue No Matter Who sphere kept on promoting that the Democrats were going to get things done, that they were going to follow through with their promises, that things were going to get better because America's soul was coming back. Well, nothing changed. It just got progressively worse. So we have been proven correct about the Democrats and anyone that carried the banner for the DNC. So what kind of bullying tactics are they going to use this time around? Because if anyone's foolish enough to waste their vote for the Democrats or any of these elections that the Democrats will be running in 2024, then you deserve to be called a fool and to be mocked, because all of us have been proven correct about calling out the utter hypocrisy. And how can people like Ryan Grimm still hold or have a leg to stand on to say, oh, well, gee, maybe this time around we could do this, or, oh, we should have saw this coming. No, we saw this happening years in advance already. So all this crap about, what happens if we lose a squad member? Big deal. World's smallest violin being played right here.
Yeah, it's
But
funny,
what-
you know. I
Go ahead.
did
No, go
see
ahead,
that
Keith.
coming. We did say that she shouldn't be running inside the Democratic Party back in, when was that? When did she declare? Was that early 2021? I guess, we said it. Not many people heard it because we were just a little audio podcast at the time. We had almost no real following, none on YouTube or like Twitter or anything. We were just audio podcast world. But it was obvious to me from the second she declared that she was going to lose. They would coalesce against her. It was very, very obvious. You could see coming from a mile away. Even when she was polling 40 points ahead, don't forget, she was polling ahead of Chantel Brown 50-15. She had a 35-point lead with 2 months to go. And the Democrat brass, Hillary Clinton, James Clyburn, the Israel lobby, they came in and they erased the 35-point lead in less than 2 months. That's how incorrigible the Democratic Party electorate is. That's why I say a huge part of the problem with the Democrats is the voters themselves. You cannot build a movement inside a party whose voters can just turn on a dime when they see a commercial telling you that James Clyburn says, no, not Nina Turner, Chantel Brown. What can you do? You can't work with people like that. You can't work with people like that.
So both of you are speaking to the point that I was trying to allude to, and then I went off on something else. But the point I was trying to get to was, the question becomes, why are you staying in this party? Why isn't this a trigger point to go, you know what? This is it. What? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm talking about whether you're a person running, or whether you're Ryan, or whether you're Brianna, or whether you're Crystal, or all the other people, Sam Cedar, that are doing content on what AIPAC is about to do. They're about to target the people you want. Why isn't this galvanizing to leave the party? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you then go, oh, those people who ran that ad, who lied about me and my family and said all this bad stuff about me, now I'm on their team and I'm supposed to do what? Hang out and be friendly? It's such a weird dynamic. Go ahead, kid.
Look, I might be overthinking this, and I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong on this, but for some reason, my mind is going into the evil territory of it's all about the dollars. Remember, 2016, the rise of Bernie Sanders, the Bernie Sanders complex, and everything that followed along with it. I mean, it went up in popularity with it. Everyone was earning their fair share of the pie. And so for a lot of these people who maybe wanted to reform the Democrats or still be associated with the Democrats, this is their way to earn a living. And now they're seeing that they themselves are being vilified by the same institution. It puts them in a really weird, messed up spot, because where do they go from here? It's either they play ball or they're no longer invited to the clubs to get the nice warm cookie and cool milk to wash it all down. So they're out. They're between a rock and a hard place. And, at the same time, too, I'm pretty sure somewhere out there in the ether, Jimmy Dore is probably laughing at all their asses because he told them, like, hey, this is going to happen. So there.
Now,
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but,
Look, it's going to be interesting, not in terms of guys like Ryan. I think they'll pretty much go down with the ship. Like, I'm not going to hold out hope, for any big revelation coming from him. But it's going to be interesting to see how some of these primaries go, because, like I said, I think AOC is pretty safe. I think Rashida Tlaib is very safe. I think Ilhan Omar is in danger of losing her seat. I think Bowman is in danger of losing his seat too. Now, let's keep in mind 66% of Americans as of the last poll, and that was about 6,000 dead children ago. So it's probably more than 66% want a ceasefire now. I would imagine 3/4 of the American people want a ceasefire now. So in districts that were progressive enough to elect people like Omar and Bowman, you have to think the people are still on the side of the Palestinians here and that they're not going to be swayed by this AIPAC influence. Then again, you never know. Primaries tend to be lower turnouts. There's a whole list of factors that could go either way in a primary. If a couple of these squad members lose their primaries and they're picked off, I have to imagine, like I said, I'm not holding out any hope for Ryan Grimm because of a lot of what Kit said, and I think he's absolutely right about a lot of that. But there's going to be some second guessing amongst the rank and file. Hey, how worthwhile is this project of reforming the Democratic Party if all we have to show for our efforts over the last 6 years are a dozen mostly useless squad members, 3 or 4 of which were just picked off by the Israel lobby the second they stepped out of line. That could create some second guessing amongst some voters. I think these PMC functionaries like Ryan Grimm, I think they're going to go down with the ship because, as Kit said, that's their gig. That's their beat. Everybody's got a racket, everybody's got a beat, and that's theirs.
Yeah, let me just the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the story of the $100 million investment in this short little video. We can, instead of reading the article, Nick kindly put together this video that goes over the story and gives the details. So let's listen to it, and then we'll finally get to Jamaal Bowman interview where he's trying to come off as a pitiful young lad there, as a sweet summer child in the interview he does with Alec Wagner. But let's listen to Nick's video on the story.
AIPAC is planning on spending $100 million in order to unseat people in Congress who are critical of the genocide of the Palestinian people. Pro-Israeli legislation often passes with around 95 to 99% Congress support. Despite this, Israel and AIPAC is still not satisfied. AIPAC wants no dissent. AIPAC is very proud with how they interfere in our elections. According to their website, 98% of AIPAC-backed candidates won their general election. They spent over $17 million. They also brag about defeating 13 candidates who would have undermined the U.S.-Israel relationship. How is any of this legal? Remember all the shitlibs who pushed Russiagate, who used to claim that Russia was undermining our elections? That's exactly what Israel and AIPAC is. AIPAC have been targeting members of the Black Congressional Caucus for years now over very mild statements critical of Israel. I cannot stress enough that many of these Black Congressional Caucus sellouts are pro-Israel. They are just not pro-Israel enough. And despite their own members being targeted by AIPAC, being funneled by Republican mega donors, Democrats stay silent and complicit with this. Where is the DCCC? The job of the DCCC is to protect incumbent Democrats unless Israel targets them. The United States is not a democracy. It's a capitalist dictatorship, and we have Zionist capitalists that are currently dictating our policies.
So why support? So if I'm Jamaal Bowman, if I'm AOC, I think this is a great, a pretty good question. If AIPAC is going to spend $100 million on me after I vote with them 95 to 99% of the time, why wouldn't I just not support them? I'm going to get the same rage. Like, I don't understand. Why not now just side with history, side with humanity by voting against Israel all the time? That's what I don't get, Keaton. Do you have an explanation? Go ahead.
That's the $64,000 question when it comes to all of these Democrats, from the electeds all the way down to the rank and file. This idea that if they play nice, that AIPAC will then play nice in return. Or, you know, in the case of the Bernie Sanders campaigns, if you play nice with the DNC, the DNC will play nice back. Doesn't work that way.
Nope.
Doesn't work that way. I have no explanation for why they don't know that. I think some people genuinely don't know that. I think some people have ulterior motives, have reasons not to know it. It's a mystery. I can't really claim to know exactly. I can't diagnose exactly what it is in each individual that keeps them from seeing that. But the truth is as obvious as could possibly be. As Nick said in that video, it's not that Jamaal Bowman isn't pro-Israel. He is. I know a couple people posted in the chat that he's taking Israel money. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. They demand full, unanimous compliance. Anything less than that, they will come for you. That's how they maintain the kind of hegemony that they have maintained. That's why it's so hard in a situation like this to even get a 4-day pause. It takes a massacre of 14,000 people to even get a 4-day timeout. And the reason for that is because the Israel lobby has been hard at work for many, many years, keeping everyone on a super short leash. You are not allowed to stray from their narrative at all. If you are in Washington, D.C., you have to swallow the entire thing every minute of every day. That's why it seemed so hopeless at first, and it doesn't seem all that much less hopeless now, to be honest with you. But you are seeing that narrative start to fall apart. If AIPAC had their way, it wouldn't be. And the way they have enforced their narrative on Washington is by doing shit like this. By cracking the whip the second anyone steps an inch out of line.
You know, it's sooner or later that is going to blow up in AIPAC's face, because look, they could buy off the politicians, but as soon as more people start speaking out, I mean, you could crack the whip as much as you want.
Well, that's it, kid. That's exactly right. Yep.
Until people like collectively, like somebody grabs the whip and like, hey, why don't you get off that high pedestal and come on down here and act all big and tough without that whip? Because that's how human history always repeats itself. You know, you mentioned like you don't know why, like maybe some people haven't figured it out. I think it's either that they do know and maybe they're hoping that their career ends, that they can at least go out with somewhat of a bang, or maybe they're being advised by people who are taking AIPAC money to tell their friends like, hey, if you play nice, AOC or any Democrat member, like if you play nice, then maybe they'll play nice with you. So they're being given terrible advice. Or, you know, maybe AIPAC just says, hey, look, do you really want this job? Because, like, look, you play nice. We're going to destroy your career, but we'll give you, like, out there in the woods, X marks the spot. There's a whole bag of money. Just take it and F off. So I'm expecting the bare minimum, and I'm not going to hold these politicians to a high standard. All of them are getting paid off. All their staffers are being paid off. They only care about money. They don't care about integrity. You think they care about the Republic or the U.S. Constitution? No. All these people have been bought off from day one. They have no honor, integrity. We have no true representation. It's all about money and people who are thinking about their careers 2 years, 4 years, 8 years down the road. We all got to come to terms with that. There's no one of integrity in Washington, D.C. It's all about the dollars. It's all about the money. And if there's any politician or staffer or DC insider wants to prove us wrong, well, then come on to our shows. Tell us what are we missing? Because why is it that everybody in Washington, D.C., all these institutions, their approval ratings are in the low double digits? Why is it that Americans don't trust corporate media? It's because of what we're seeing presented before us and their actions, the choices that they have made, and how it's impacting all of us. But then again, I could be wrong.
Right on. All right, gentlemen, let's wind this segment down with this video. We did all of that to come up to lead up to this video, because this is where they're gonna show. So AIPAC has already started going after Jamaal Bowman. So he goes on the Alex Wagner show, and Alex Wagner, if you don't know, is on MSNBC. She's the one who replaced 75% of the time when Rachel Maddow, she only appears like once every so often or something like that. So anyway, Alex Wagner plays the ad, and then she has Jamaal Bowman on for a one-on-one. And again, it appears maybe she's on his side to be saying, I'm with the, the great superhero progressives against the big bad AIPAC. But let's listen. Let me know where you want it to stop.
1,400 Israelis slaughtered by Hamas, women raped, babies beheaded, over 200 hostages. But Jamaal Bowman was one of just 10 votes in Congress against condemning Hamas's terrorism. Tell Jamaal Bowman to stand with Israel.
That was a new ad now running in the District of New York Congressman, Democrat Jamaal Bowman. The ad is from the political arm of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, as it is more commonly known. And it is not the first time that AIPAC has tried to take on progressive members of Congress or even take on Jamaal Bowman himself. But it is the first time that AIPAC's mission is part of a larger battle within the Democratic Party over the Israel-Hamas war. And that fight is most evident in the debate between pro-Israel Democrats and the Squad. Congressman Bowman is already facing a potential challenge from Westchester County Executive George Latimer, who says he will make a final decision after returning from a solidarity trip to Israel. Other Squad members, including Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar, Summer Lee, and Rashida Tlaib, are all expected to face potential primary challengers as well. As Michelle Goldberg writes in the New York Times, a series of ugly primary campaigns fought over Israel will only widen the progressive political divide. But with horror at conditions in Gaza and Jewish fear both ratcheting up, an intra-party clash over the future of the Squad now looks inevitable. Joining me now is New York Congressman, Democrat Jamaal Bowman. Congressman, thank you for coming here to talk about. I know it's a tricky topic, it's a difficult topic, but talk to me a little bit about what this moment has been like as you sort of navigate a constituency really more pronounced in its division than many other members of Congress.
Yeah, it's been so I think that means what she just said, Keaton, and I think maybe you alluded to it. He had his constituency has a large Jewish base, so I guess she's assuming that they could be pro-Israel, but then he also has a large progressive base,
right?
Which could mean they are pro-Palestinian or free Palestinian. So is he one of the New York reps that sort of is presented with this clash of constituents, in your opinion, or that you know of?
Yes, yeah, for exactly what she said, and that's what I was, as you said, that's what I was getting at earlier. His district has a lot of Jewish voters and a lot of progressive voters as well, and so this is really going to come down to turnout. This is going to be a pretty hard fought race, I think. And so it's going to come down to who can, mobilize their base, who can pound the pavement harder. And this is where the fact that the Squad has been so fucking useless could come back to bite them in the ass. Because if you're Jamaal Bowman, you're going to have a hell of a hard time rallying the grassroots to have your back. Because what have you done for them?
Right. That's what I was going to be getting to. But before I answer what you just said there, I just wanted to bring this up before I forget. They want Richie Torres level support. I think that's a good sort of marker,
absolutely. Well, they have that from Richie Torres, obviously. They have that from Hakeem Jeffries as well. They had that from Elliot Engel, who, don't forget, was the guy who Jamaal Bowman successfully primaried. He was the previous rep from that district, extremely pro-Israel congressman. So it is possible they can pick him off. He's going to have to go back to that progressive base that put him there over Elliot Engel in 2020 and convince them to have his back again. I think that's going to be a very tough sell, because if his base are anything like us, we've been burned too many times. You think I would knock on one fucking door for this asshole? No way.
So let's talk about it now, because that was sort of the point of the segment at the end. That do they think the left is going to galvanize behind them? You already jumped to it, Keaton, so let's talk about it. Do they think, and let's go to Kit, do they think the left is going to galvanize behind them after breaking a strike, after lying about breaking a strike, after so many sort of disappointments after voting for the Iron Dome, after saying I would vote for it, like AOC have recently said, I will vote for the Iron Dome now if for all things. Bless you. So, Kid, tell us what you think on that.
Well, first of all, there is no way the left is going to galvanize around the squad or the remnants of the Justice Democrats. This story's already months old, but we've heard reports about how the Justice Democrats are letting go of people. All the people who put in their time, effort, money, and energy into the squad, we have got a net result of 0. Same thing with the DSA, who was supposed to be this outside group. They voted to reign to be a wing of the Democratic Party. Any institution that talked about reforming the Democratic Party, any institution that talked about putting in progressives or people with, the policy of fighting for a better future and putting forth progressive policies, we've got nothing. We've all we heard is see these politicians compromise. We're being told that they have to keep their powder dry for the big push, the big fight that never happened. And then all the sycophants that carried water for the squad, like Fat Tony, Cenk Uygur, or Sammy Boy Cedar, or anybody else like Kyle Kalinske, the dime store M&M. All these people who said, we got to wait, hold on, we got to give them enough breathing space so these squad members can have enough political capital, and then we're going to get them, and then we're going to do it. It's like you're seeing a team that has barely won the World Series or the Super Bowl, and you think, oh yeah, eventually they're going to get there. Like, no, it doesn't. You have to wait for a very, very, very long time. It wasn't too long ago where old hagbag Nancy Pelosi fought for Medicare for all. So this whole idea that the left is going to galvanize, we have been beaten and abused enough. And so many people who at least held on to the audacity of hope that maybe the squad would come around, people have wisened up to the fact that they are in a violent, domestic, abusive relationship. All right.
Kid, you do stand up. I swear you
I'm not a comedian. I'm not a comedian. Don't put that evil on me.
but Keaton, it sounds the way you talk, Kid, sounds very similar to a New Jersey person from New Jersey, or somebody from Boston. I don't know if I'm just mixing up.
No,
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Very working class. It's
I
very
can see.
similar
Yeah, it has
to the
that
style
salt of
that I
the
hear
earth
all the
kind of
time.
quality.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
thank you. I got to work on the material, and maybe if Jimmy Dore is able to get the Chicago theater, I could do an opening for him. Maybe.
Right
just not today. Just not today. Hold on. Just not today.
Akeem, were you gonna chime in? We can go back to the video. Were you gonna chime in?
I'm good for now.
Okay, so let's finish off this video where he's pretty much pleading and begging, trying to create sort of a victim mentality, I guess, in certain constituencies. But let's listen.
A traumatic moment. It's been a painful moment. It's been a moment filled with grief and suffering by my Jewish constituents as well as my Muslim constituents. And so it's been multi-layered. You have the behavior of the Israeli government, which needs to be critiqued very strongly in my belief. You have the impact of that critique on the Jewish community, both locally in my district and globally. You have Muslims who have felt erased in this whole conversation and even dehumanized as well when you hear some of the rhetoric coming from Israeli officials towards Palestinians, referring to them as animals. So it's been multi-layered, multifaceted, filled with very strong emotion. And what I've tried to do is just absorb it, so to stand in the middle of it, learn from it.
Yeah, that's what you're elected to do, to absorb it and stand in the middle of it.
Wait a minute. This is the same guy who admitted on air that he confused a fire alarm opening for a door opener. Like, come on, man. Seriously.
I'm absorbing it and standing in the middle of it. Yeah, that's what you were elected to do, right? That sounds like real fiery rhetoric. It sounds like a man on a mission. People feel strongly on both sides, and I just kind of absorb all those opinions and stand somewhere in the middle. What a leader. Profile and courage.
And understand the reason he feels comfortable with saying things like critique the government but not the people, or you also hear people say Netanyahu's bad, like Morning Joe. They'll critique Netanyahu, but not Israel because he has a terrible approval rating right now. So he is open for critiques. But let's get back to what they're saying here. She does ask a couple of good follow-ups here.
Accordingly, in a way that meets the needs of a diverse constituency, as you mentioned.
I was struck. Michelle Goldberg, who was just our guest,
basically saying, I'm sorry, can you pause it 1 second? He's basically saying, I took no position because half of my constituents feel one way and half of my constituents feel the other. And so I think the moral thing to do is just to absorb those opinions and not take a side. That's exactly what he said.
You know, I nearly forgot this too. You know, it wasn't too long ago where good friend, you know, I'm pretty sure he comments on your shows too. Roger Meadows, he actually confronted Jamaal Bowman, you know, about his voting stance and how he's not helping out working class citizens. You know what Jamaal Bowman had the audacity to say to Roger Meadows? I played it on my show. I gotta find that clip now. Roger, if you're watching, send me that clip again. But you know, Jamaal Bowman says to Roger, like, "Hey man, why are you coming up to me like this? Man, this isn't appropriate. You shouldn't be talking to me in this manner." Almost like, how dare you, Roger Meadows, a voting constituent in the great state of New York, talk to your congressional representative and demand more out of me? Like, what the hell? This guy, he doesn't give a damn about the people of New York City. He doesn't give a damn about anyone that he represents. And because now he shook up AIPAC, like he's in a rock and a hard place because he has nowhere to go. You know, you ran as a progressive, you ran as a Justice Democrat, but when push came to shove, when you had to challenge power, you're going to bend over backwards and start kissing your own wazoo. This guy stands for nothing.
Spot on. Let's get back to the video. Here we go.
Followed your campaign as you tried to navigate meetings with constituents over on this topic. And she quotes one woman who was involved, I believe, with your campaign at one point. Diana Lovett said polarization over the congressman was tearing apart local Democrats. I love him personally. He was lovely and he's amazing. And he was the same warm and open-hearted person that he was today. This is at the event that you had. But she had come to believe that their views on the Middle East are irreconcilable.
Oh, God.
Oh, irreconcilable.
When you hear that, what is your reaction to that?
Oh, thank you for saying I have a big heart.
Well, she said that.
No,
yeah.
thank you to her for saying that. I don't think they're irreconcilable. I think for a very long time, we've been having one conversation.
You know what? It is irreconcilable, and that's what we've been saying. We're on the other side, saying this is irreconcilable, but from a different point of view. You can't either give the money or give the gun to the person that's committing, to a deranged person that's committing acts of cruelty and crimes, and then be like, oh, after the act of cruelty has been done, I'm helping the victim. That somehow evens this out. That's not the case. So in my opinion, you have to stop funding the psychopath in order for you to be able to say you're truly on the side of the person who is being victimized. But either of you wanted to chime in, Keaton or Kit here, or I can continue to play.
Well, no, that's 100% right. It is irreconcilable, which means you have to pick a side, and you have to hope that your side has the numbers to beat the other side, which he does have those numbers if he can mobilize those voters. His problem is it's going to be hard for him to mobilize those voters because he's already stabbed them in the back so many times. Yeah. If he didn't have the numbers on his side, he wouldn't have won his primary in 2020. The Congressional Black Caucus endorsed Eliot Engel. A lot of establishment power was behind Eliot Engel in that primary. The reason he won is because the voters of his district are mostly on his side, but because he's such a coward, he's not willing to take their side. And so it is an open question as to whether or not they will have his back. But I am very curious how he tries to James Bond his way out of this. As he tries to wiggle his way out of this question.
So Keaton, what you're saying is he got into power on the backs of progressives,
Yes,
turned his back on him, on
Yes.
those same progressives, on several different topics, including Israel, voting for the Iron Dome.
Right.
And now that he needs those constituents that put him into power, he has to answer for the stuff he turned his back on them for.
Exactly.
This is
If
the
he repped
problem.
them, he'd
Go
have
ahead.
no problem. Because if he
Right.
repped them, he'd have no problem. He has the numbers on his side. Yes, there are a lot of Zionists in Westchester and even the Bronx, although not as many in the Bronx as there used to be. But Yonkers, Westchester County, yeah, sure. But there aren't enough to beat him in a primary if he were a solid rep for his base. His problem is he has not been a solid rep for his base, and so it's doubtful whether or not his base is going to show up to have his back once AIPAC pours all this money into trying to get rid of him. It's going to become an enthusiasm question, really, is basically my main point.
Yeah,
Because it's going to come down to which crop of voters are more mobilized. Are the Zionists who are angry at him for not being 100% pro-Israel, are they going to be more motivated to come out and get rid of him than his progressive base is going to be motivated to come out and have his back?
So great. So not only that, it's going to be a matter of fear propaganda and fear porn again because, oh, look, here's Jamaal Bowman. So progressives, if you want to have another progressive and not have some sort of corporate Democrat, you better turn out to vote for Jamaal Bowman, who will still 99% of the time vote against your interests. Or do you want to support this Democrat who's a corporatist who will vote 100% time against your interests? So it's an either or, lesser of two evils in a Democratic primary race. Again, what's the point of running in the Democratic Party if you're going to be compromised and screwed over? It was a wasteful experiment. It was a waste of time to try and reform it with Justice Democrats and brand new Congress and our revolution. And I'm kind of like at this point relieved that people are seeing this and that there is a lack of enthusiasm for Democrats because they never followed through. What does it look like when a Democratic politician follows through with its promises? I mean, when's the last time we can remember that the quote unquote progressives in Washington, D.C. followed through with anything for us? Do we have a list, or is it just nothing but Democratic talking points? Like what?
I haven't seen that list.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So let's try to finish this up to keep this right at an hour of our first hour. So let's finish this up here.
Conversation without the other. We have been saying for so long, we are pro-Israel, pro-Israel's right to exist, pro-Israel's right to defend itself and self-determination. But we haven't been saying the same thing about Palestinians. And so what I've been trying to communicate, and this is all, again, based on my learning. I work very closely with Americans for Peace Now, J Street, If Not Now, Jewish Voices for Peace, and many organizations. Israel's safety and security is directly connected to Palestinian freedom, safety, and security. So we've been using a lot of rhetoric around a two-state solution for decades.
The loser argument.
And when I went there, I saw that we are nowhere near a two-state solution. Myself, as a sitting member of Congress, could not walk through certain checkpoints in the West Bank because I wasn't Jewish. So we're using rhetoric, but our policies aren't matching the rhetoric, and our policies aren't matching the urgency of the moment. October 7th was a horrible day, horrific day, and Hamas must be condemned, and we must get the hostages back, absolutely. But condemnation is only step one. How are we going to do the work to actually get to a state for Palestinians and do the work here to bring communities together around education and engagement so we could deal with anti-Semitism in a real way, Islamophobia in a real way, racism, sexism, and all the isms that continue to plague us in a real way? We haven't done it here, and we're not doing it globally.
Yeah, when you say we haven't done it here, I got to bring in President Biden, because there are new numbers that NBC has out about the president's support among young people and Black voters. And I believe, and I don't have the numbers with me here, but I believe it is 70% of voters 18 to 35 do not agree with the way this president has handled the situation, the war in Gaza. Talk to me about what do you attribute that to? Is that the way? Is that Is that the sort of one-sidedness, as you call it, in this conversation? And then I want to talk to you about the way this intersects with the Black experience. First, in terms of young voters, what does the president need to do differently?
Well, it's going to be tough, and it is tough.
He can't
because
do
young
anything.
voters are already upset.
He can't do anything. Biden can't do anything to get back young voters. If we said that he was going to abandon progressives in 2020, I said that he was going to do it, and I was automatically vilified. Jimmy Dore was vilified. Hell, it caused my channel, 4 of my videos. It's like half of my reason why I was censored 8 times on YouTube is because we were challenging the Biden-Harris administration. So all this BS of, oh, how's Biden going to get back voters? He can't. He can't. He never followed through with any of his promises. We have been proven correct again about Biden and the Democrats. So good luck, squad. How are you going to get us to come back to you? You made it abundantly clear that you don't need us. So why should we come back to you? You told us how you feel. You told us the truth. So good luck. Good luck with Biden. That's your old dog. That's the one you wanted. AOC and Bernie were quick to endorse him. So no one's going to go back to him. Why?
Yeah,
why
and that
should they?
answer he gave on the Israel issue was a loser. It was a loser with both camps, right? I'm just playing horse race here. The Zionists in his district do not want to hear him say the security of Israel depends on the freedom of the Palestinian people. Zionists don't agree with that. They don't agree with that. If they did agree with that, they wouldn't have locked the Palestinian people in 2 open-air concentration camps. So there were really 3, actually. But they obviously don't feel that way. So it's a loser with them. And then I'm sorry, the progressive base, the pro-Palestinian base, a base that I would call myself a part of if I were in his district. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in hearing about the security concerns of a state that is committing a genocide right now. Like, we don't want to hear the issue framed that way. Okay? Israel tragically lost 1,200 people on October 7th. Since then, they have paid back in blood more than 10 times the amount of Palestinians, more than half of whom women and children. I don't want to hear about their security concerns right now. That's just not, I mean, their security concerns pale in comparison to the security concerns of babies and children and mothers in Gaza. And so that both sidesing is just not going to fly with his progressive base either. So that's a complete loser answer. He's just fence sitting. And by fence sitting, he's making himself a sitting duck because you're not going to mobilize your base that way. You are not going to inspire the voters who you need to come out for you with that kind of talk. And New York City has been a hotbed of pro-Palestinian protests. I mean, there are massive protests in New York City multiple times per week. And not all of them live in his particular district, but a lot of them do. And so they're not fucking around on this issue. They're not going to come out and vote for this mealy-mouthed nonsense.
That's who he needs to galvanize. If he understood, being in the moral position here, being in a humane position is what's going to galvanize the energy you're going to need to fight AIPAC. You're not going to galvanize. You don't have the ability to galvanize enough energy. I'm going to say it this way. There's not enough energy in the progressive Democratic movement alone to galvanize enough energy to fight AIPAC, i.e. Nina Turner. You saw that already. You're not better than Nina Turner. You don't have the same footprint as Nina Turner. You can't outdo what AIPAC did to Nina Turner. Like, that's just not happening. So if you were to fall on the side of humanity and righteousness and the side of history here and side with Palestinians, you would be able to galvanize that energy from the street. Hey guys, AIPAC is trying to take me out because I am here with you guys marching and fighting for Palestinians. And all my votes show that. He doesn't have the ability to do that. But that's what would be galvanizing enough for him to beat AIPAC. So
right,
yeah.
And when I just want to add one more thing. Like, when I say people don't want to hear about the security concerns for Israel, I'm not implying that the pro-Palestinian base wants Israelis hurt. I'm just saying that seems like both sidesing it at a time when the violence has been so one-sided right? When the carnage has been so one-sided, to hear him come up here and say, well, it's actually in Israel's best interest to free the Palestinians. Most people are like, well, first of all, the Israelis don't believe that. If they did, they wouldn't be mistreating the Palestinians, number one. And number two, for you to be emphasizing the priorities of the Israeli state at a time when they should be sanctioned. They should be sanctioned. They should be paying a price for what they're doing right now as a murderous fascist state that is, just marauding its way through an imprisoned population right now. For you to be saying, well, hey, what would be good for you is if you would be nicer. No.
Can we also point out the fact, and look, I'm pretty sure you guys have done phenomenal work already on this, but anyone want to talk about or reveal to Jamaal Bowman how Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had a very close and personal relationship with Hamas and why he's never really done anything with it? Does anyone want to talk about the fact of why before October 7th, good old Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had a lot of domestic issues impacting him to where his own government wanted him out? Does anyone want to talk about the fact that how do you not see this haymaker coming? You got these huge concrete walls, these watchtowers, barbed wire fences, surveillance drones, cameras, best intel service around, and you don't see this 1-2 punch coming your way on October 7th. How'd you let your guard down? Well, maybe people get lazy, but I don't know. Just something just doesn't add up. Something just seems too suspicious to me. So, and not to mention, again, the Israeli government had a close working relationship with Hamas. No one wants to talk about the financial dealings. And, oh, by the way, maybe this kind of slipped under everyone's radar, but it wasn't too long ago when, it was revealed that there were some weapons from this place called Ukraine somehow were in the hands of the Hamas when they were doing the attack. Does anyone want to talk about that anymore? No, probably not, because, that would upset somebody like Jamaal Bowman and the Democrats because, that puts them in an uncomfortable spot because they're Democrats and they have to put on that little fancy mask saying, it's both sides. It's both sides always.
Right on. Let's listen.
It's over a variety of things, including how he's handled the climate issue. He's done some good things, and it's kind of playing a yo-yo with him. He does some good things, and they come in, and then he does something else that pushes them away. And the response to the Israel-Gaza conflict, again, the one-sidedness of it has really turned young people away and the BIPOC community away as well. And it's not just the president, it's Congress for the most part. I mean, I'm in a small minority calling for a ceasefire. I mean, the majority, it's growing a little bit. It started as like 6 or 8, but now it's up to 30, which is really good. But the president hasn't done that. And young people, they want peace. They want justice. They want a diplomatic response to what's going on. They want us to spend more money on education and jobs and climate and keeping people out of prison and healthcare than we spend on war. And this president at the moment is not showing the capacity to do that. And the party and the Congress, not just the party, all of Congress isn't showing the capacity to do that. So I think it's a combination of all these things that's turning young people off, and people of color have been turned off for a while because of lack of comprehensive immigration reform, if you're talking about the Latino community, and no conversation at all about reparations if you're talking about the Black community. But we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year on weapons and war, but we can't even have a conversation about reparations. Those are the things that are happening.
Do you think his position on Israel and Gaza, the Israel war with Hamas, has anything to do with his? I think he's lost about 15% of the Black vote in this latest NBC polling. Do you think that has anything to do with how he's talked about this conflict in particular? I mean, I know Ta-Nehisi Coates, the great writer on race in America, saw a lot of similarities in terms of the experience of what is happening with Palestinians, the lack of mobility, the lack of representation, and the Black experience in America. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, even before I went to the West Bank on my own, not on my own, but with J Street, I spoke to Israeli and Palestinian scholars over the phone just to learn more about it. And one of them, I forget his name, told me that we're at the civil rights era moment here in the West Bank. This is like Jim Crow. And when I heard Ta-Nehisi Coates say that, I felt what he was saying, because although I didn't live during the Jim Crow South, I read about it. And when I went there, it felt that way. It felt suffocating. It felt stifling. It felt, immobile. And again, for me as a sitting member of Congress who has voted in support of the Iron Dome, right? So I felt what he was talking about.
It's so crazy, and I'm going to end it there. It's so crazy that he doesn't see what he just said as a contradiction. That's so astonishing to me.
Because
that
he's a
him as
professional
PNC
liar.
Doesn't see that. But what do you think about this last part that he's speaking to about Biden losing support over this issue? I mean, he kind of still tap danced sort of around it. But so I'll say my part and I'll pass it to you. I'll speak on the part about the Black experience, and I've said this many times. Nick and I have said this. This is really why, like, you see us go so hard, because what I'm doing is trying to be the ally that I wish some of my ancestors had at the time. So that's what I'm trying to be very vocal about it, show anger, not just like I'm speaking about it. Like, I need to show that this is really upsetting because it is. I'm not at all acting at all. I'm just saying that's something you do want to display. But what say you about this last part of the interview, about what he's saying about Palestine, about what he's saying about the vote share that he's losing over some of these issues and these communities that he needs to win? What say you, both of you?
Well, because there is rightfully such passion and anger about this, it is going to be extremely difficult. I would even say impossible for Biden to get back enough young voters to have a chance to win. I mean, 14,000 people have been murdered. Like, that's done. That's not... That cannot be undone, even if he plays every card right from here on out, which of course he's not going to, right? So I think that is settled. I think that ship has sailed. In regards to this whole thing, well, yeah, and I say this as someone who voted for the Iron Dome, what he's really articulating is the two-state solution, which is why so many have now come to realize how absurd this sort of two-state solution discourse has become. Because you can't have a two-state solution when one state is intent on cannibalizing the other state and has made very clear their intention to do so over the past 75 years. You know, one thing you don't have in place right now is the infrastructure for a Palestinian state. You don't have the infrastructure for that. Israel controls all of that infrastructure. They control agriculture. They control imports. They control the electricity. They control the water. And if they are not willing to grant some autonomy to these occupied territories, then there is no two-state solution to be talked about. And this fence sitting that Bowman is engaging in is basically the stance of the two-state solution people, which is, yeah, Israel can exist in its current form and the Palestinians can have a state. Well, that's obviously impossible. I mean, if this does not prove that is impossible, what does? And that's why when you talk that way, you sound fucking ridiculous.
It's hard to follow up with that, but I'm just going to say this. What you just heard, everything come out from Jamaal Bowman's mouth is nothing but a word salad. He didn't believe in a goddamn thing he said there. He just said it to make himself look good and to make himself look presentable so that people will be suckering in to vote for him for another term into office. It's all about maintaining one's political career and having all the wonderful benefits. He's just lying his way through. He doesn't believe in a goddamn thing he says. Okay, and he's a guy who says, I voted for the Iron Dome. Okay, well, whoop-de-doo. You want a parade? You want some flowers for that? Okay, you voted for the Iron Dome, and now, what, you're shocked that, 14,000 people are dead? Well, 14,000 people are dead, and guess what? The dead stay dead. They don't come back. It's not like a Marvel movie where you can reverse what Thanos did. Once they're gone, they're gone. They can't come back. And, when Bassem Youssef was on Piers Morgan's show, right? He just made it very clear and simple. Like how many Hamas fighters did we create with the loss at a time? 11,000 dead. All what this conflict did is laid a foundation for the next war 10 years down the road. And God forbid, you, Keaton, you, Compton, myself, or anybody else in independent media, we're having this conversation again 10 years down the road. Like, hey, we saw this coming. This was going to happen. So people like Jamaal Bowman, we can't rely on them to be truthful. All these politicians have got to go. And the one true step of freedom is not voting Democrat and not voting Republican. It's actually building movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C. That's why where RBN comes in, where you guys, you do community relief, helping out, community outreach, and so much more. That's where we got to start. That's the necessary step forward to build a better future, because people like Jamaal Bowman don't believe in it.
Absolutely. Just giving a kiss. My wife's taking my daughter to gymnastics, so she's taking off.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Switched it to Monday. But anyway, I think we can wrap that segment, and we're going to go to your segment, Keaton. But let me give just a couple of announcements, and you can kind of set up your segments and share and all that stuff.
I just have 2 exhibits, so I'll screen share them.
Absolutely. All right. So just a few announcements to go over really quickly, and that is our updates to our website. So I just want to quickly show you our websites, a couple of updates, and we're working class sort of organization, so we're doing things on our websites, some at a time, and we've gotten to this point. So we still have the icons above there, but now we added the become a member part here, and that's if you want to become a Patreon member. That's now in the center of the landing page. And we also added this button, join the list, and that's if you want to join our Substack. So if anytime you're watching and I don't put up our Substack link, you can always go to our website and get it. Here are some of our latest clips. Also new on here is if you go to our chapters, we've added some of our Boston pictures. I think for sure they're on mine. So I'll go to mine because I know they're on mine. We've added the Boston pictures. I'm sorry, the Palestinian march pictures. And when I said Boston, because they had another event after this that they also have on theirs. But you can see some of the pictures here from the LA event, and then it goes into the pizza giveaway we had on Skid Row. So just some additions added on our website you can always check out, and there you go. All right, Keaton, you're just about ready, or you need a little more time?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, so I'm ready
to
when
go.
you are.
Okay, beautiful. First of all, I just saw some people in the chat were chirping. There's apparently a little bit of confusion, although not much, about Russell's hosting dates on the Jimmy Dore show. He is going to be hosting second week of January, not this week. Some people, for some reason, thought he was hosting this week, but no, he will be hosting the second week of January. He's flying out there first week of January, so I'm assuming he's going to be sitting in as a co-host for that first week just to get him acquainted, but that's when he will be on there, so not this week. He will be on with me from New York on Wednesday night. Okay, let's get to some of this. Now, I had a different article prepped for this, but this literally broke at 7:08 p.m., very shortly before we came on. So let's do this right here. Beautiful. Vermont man charged with attempted murder for shootings of Palestinian students. Jason J. Eaton, 48, of Burlington, was charged with shooting 3 college students of Palestinian descent on Saturday outside the building where the police said he lives. A 48-year-old Vermont man was charged on Monday with 3 counts of attempted second-degree murder in the weekend shooting of 3 young men of Palestinian descent on a Burlington street, a violent episode that stunned the small city. As investigators sought to determine whether the shooting could be classified as a hate crime, local officials called the attack on the 3 men, college students who were visiting for Thanksgiving, one of the most shocking events in Burlington's history, and a grave setback for a city that strives to be welcoming. Whether or not it was a hate crime by the law, there is no question it was a hateful act, Chief John Murad of the Burlington Police said at a news conference on Monday afternoon. The suspect pleaded not guilty on Monday and was being held without bail. He appeared in court through a remote video link from jail and did not speak during the brief hearing except to thank the judge. If convicted, he can face life in prison. The 3 young men, all 20, had been staying at the home of an uncle of one of them and had gone out for a walk at 6:30 p.m. The police said Mr. Eaton approached the three friends outside the apartment building where he lives on North Prospect Street, and without speaking, pulled out a handgun and started shooting about 2 yards away. So, look, I mean, this was pretty obviously a hate crime. I mean, it was a random act. There was no preceding altercation. There's no reason to believe that this man knew any of these three guys. These three guys were all from out of town. And so, obviously you have to let the system play out. But from the looks of this was pretty clearly a racially motivated incident. And so I want to go to one other exhibit here, because we've heard a lot in recent weeks about how unsafe a lot of Jewish students are feeling on college campuses because of all the microaggressions that have been thrown their way by the scary Free Palestine protests that have been in their space. Meanwhile, now you have 3 guys shot. 1 guy was shot in the spine. So one of them is in pretty serious condition. Obviously, we hope to God that he pulls through. The other 2 are expected to pull through. But just an absolutely horrific incident. But I want to go to a video that Aaron Mate posted on his Twitter, because on CNN, the talk is still about the quote-unquote anti-Semitism on college campuses, so much so that they want to censor TikTok now. Now they're actually talking about censoring TikTok because there's too much pro-Palestinian sentiment, or as they would say, anti-Jewish hate on the platform. So let's go to this conversation here. Mind you, this is in the wake of, could you imagine what they would be talking about if a Muslim guy gunned down 3 Jews on the street right now?
That'd be nonstop 24/7.
That would be nonstop wall-to-wall coverage.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, in the wake of this horrible incident, here's Dana Bash talking to Senator Chris Murphy. I think I got the sound hooked up right. Let me know if it comes through.
Senator, we have seen an alarming spike in anti-Semitism, hate against Jews across the United States, but particularly on college campuses. You also sit on the Senate committee that deals with education. What's gone so wrong on America's college campuses that you have students openly applauding the terrorist killings of 1,200 or more civilians?
Yeah, I've listen, I'm all for free speech on our campuses, but I've been very disappointed at the response of many of our university officials. There's a direct line between some of the most vicious anti-Semitism speech happening on our campus and threats of violence to synagogues and to Jewish communities.
Oh, there's a direct line between the anti-Semitism on campuses and threats of violence in Jewish communities. What about all of the genocidal rhetoric out of media heads, out of the IDF that are broadcasted on outlets like CNN with very, very minimal pushback at the start, now barely more than minimal pushback 6 weeks and 14,000 corpses later? Again, what responsibility do those forces bear for the attempted murder of 3 Muslim Palestinian students in Burlington, Vermont? But let's go to the rest of this video, because he kind of pivots from that topic to the broader topic of we need to just shut down these ideas in general by censoring the very platforms on which they spread.
I ultimately, think we need to sort of think really hard about the way in which our young people are receiving information about this conflict. We need to hold accountable the social media sites, in particular TikTok, which is just full of virulent pro-Hamas and anti-Semitic material. The college campuses need to have a better means of accountability for this kind of hate speech. But we also have to recognize that these young people are getting their information from somewhere, often from a Chinese-controlled social media platform.
That's right.
That has in its interest,
That's China.
trying to turn America against each other. And one of the means they may be doing that is trying to promote a lot of pretty hateful and divisive material about the conflict in Gaza.
You have accounts like Jackson Hinkle and Jake Shields that have gone mega viral in the wake of October 7th because they have been posting a lot of the horrible violence that has been perpetrated against the people of Gaza over these past 6 weeks. But notice they're not as threatened by Twitter as they are by TikTok, because Elon Musk is a pain in the ass. He's a headache for them, there's no doubt. But at the end of the day, they can bring him to heel pretty easily. Don't forget, he just went to Israel.
Yeah.
Conversations just went viral. Him talking to Netanyahu. It's pretty easy to make Elon Musk their bitch at the end of the day. The Chinese, not so easy, right? And so now they're trying to put out there it's China's fault. You're actually going to blame the Chinese for the fact that young people are now spreading pro-Palestinian, or as they call it, hateful anti-Israeli propaganda. Again, their words, not mine. It's just so ludicrous and so just overtly fascistic. I mean, these are fascists. If this isn't fascism, what is? You're trying to shut down a platform using this sort of xenophobic trope, because don't forget, they could shut down X as well, and some idiots like Keith Olbermann have chirped about doing that. But notice you haven't heard language like that coming from Washington, because they know they can bring Elon under control at the end of the day, as they've pretty much proven in the last 24 hours or so. TikTok is a different animal because it's Chinese. Oh, this is a foreign influence operation. Young people would be on board with genocide if it weren't for those Chinese putting ideas in their heads.
Let's follow through with what they're saying, Keaton. Just hypothetically, like, what do we think it would result in? Like, if they shut down TikTok, or if they severely restricted it, like what do they think? They think that's going to turn? They're going to go, oh, I didn't get the latest picture from Palestine, so now I'm pro-Israel. Like,
yeah, exactly.
What do they think is going to result in that? I'm just curious to know. I'll be curious to ask. That would be the question I would ask, is like, what do you think is going to happen if that was to happen? But another thing that comes to mind with this sort of story and what he said in the interview there is that it's so bizarre. It's such a exercise in like a word salad thinking, the way, because they're having to add more and more layers of restriction, anti-democratic sort of things to our system in order to control the narrative, and the ways that they're coming up with sort of describing, taking away democracy, misinformation. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just very curious in what other sort of level, because they're gonna have to take it to a higher level than just, oh, this is misinformation. For the people who are pro-Palestinian, they're going to have to take it to another level, and I'm curious, what could that be? I know they're going to surprise me, and right now I'm just thinking, I'm not thinking how terrible it could be. Whatever I think, I know it'll be worse, basically. And that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good question. It's an interesting thought. It's a question I couldn't really answer, because one thing that I think three old wise men that we are here on this panel, we don't realize how big TikTok actually is. Like, TikTok is a massive social media platform. I mean, young people are on that thing the way we used to be on Facebook when it first came out. Remember when Facebook first came out? Everybody was on it.
Yeah,
that's the way TikTok is now with these young people. They are on that thing all day, every day, in absolutely massive numbers. And I do think there is a chance that they will, at the very least, throttle it or censor it brutally. They already have tried censoring it quite a bit. But because, there seems to be bipartisan anti-China consensus, at least around, their perceived influence on this issue, they could take action against TikTok. And at that point, it does create a very interesting question of what's next, because these young people are going to get information out somewhere. Facebook has been atrocious in terms of censorship on this issue. Instagram, same thing, obviously same parent company.
Exactly.
That's very popular with young people too, but they have not led anything. I mean, they've just been horrible on this. Twitter is probably the place where they would go, because Elon has been better than Facebook on this. Like, Twitter's been better than Facebook, but as you can see, they've got him in their grips now too. So, and look, this is why we say all the time that we need to build and really commit to free speech tech platforms like Substack and like Rumble. I know it's a pain in the ass. I know Rumble's tech is shoddy. They were having problems this afternoon. I tried to upload a couple videos. I couldn't fucking do it. Jimmy had a problem getting his live stream going at the same time I was having a problem uploading. So I know it's a pain in the ass. I know it's rickety. But that's the only answer. Ultimately, the only answer is to invest in hardline pro-free speech tech platforms, because because every other asshole who runs one of these major tech platforms seems like can be bought, can be influenced. It seems like Elon can be brought under control when push comes to shove. But young people need social media. They need that fix. They're going to get it somewhere. There's going to be demand for it. Now, I think this is what kind of you were asking me, CJ, past the point of censoring the big platforms, how do they crack down on the alt tech platforms? Like, how do they crack down on sites like Rumble? We know France has already banned Rumble, right? Like, how do they go ahead and do that? That requires a broader effort, because now you have to start going at the internet service providers themselves. I mean, now you're talking real Orwell shit. Now you're talking real totalitarianism. They might go there too if they have to. I mean, there's no saying they won't.
Man, we're here, gentlemen. We're here, and it's just this is so crazy to me. Go ahead, kid. I'm just
the thing is, what's been concerning me is eventually, I hope I'm wrong about this. I don't want to say it, but I have been having this fear of one day, all of us go ahead and check out our YouTube platforms and all of our social medias, and it's locked out, because it can be done. I mean, individually, I know I've helped out a lot of our fellow colleagues, and you guys yourselves, like when you've got hit with the YouTube guidelines and the censorship. And I know young people, like for a lot of people who are maybe addicted or use TikTok, whatever, because again, we were all young ones too, and we were all on social media, and people said, well, we're addicted to this too, but people need social media. And I think if young people see just how powerful the censorship machine truly is, maybe we could see a more vocal reaction of people demanding and protecting the First Amendment and free speech. So there's a lot of things to take away from this, but it's also frightening with the amount of power the establishment can do to silence and suppress. I mean, there was at one point the Hunter Biden laptop story that was censored on Facebook and Twitter, for example. You couldn't share that story. If you tried, you were locked out of your own account. And thankfully, the Twitter files, and then to an extent, Zuckerberg on Joe Rogan's show admitted the same thing that Twitter was doing, Facebook was doing as well. So we have to start building it up and look at alternative platforms, but there's always going to be the establishment push to silence outside thinking. And if you're going to try and stand up against the narrative, get ready for that jackboot. And it's only going to get progressively worse unless people wake up and say, hey, wait a minute, we're all in this together. We can't have our voices silenced on this, because if they're going to silence us on this issue, they get silenced on the next issue and the next issue afterwards. And wait, should we trust our corporate overlords? Do they have our best interest? And the answer is no, they don't. They never did. It's all about power and control and silent obedient consent. And since corporate media lost and I will say this, corporate media lost its official round against the internet when people started abandoning CNN and MSNBC. Why do you think CNN and MSNBC bullied their way onto YouTube and all the other social media platforms? Because they were losing the eyeballs, they were losing the viewers, and the neoliberal establishment machine couldn't control the narrative because people got tired of corporate television and cable news. People got tired of it. They wanted something different. And so The establishment is going to try and maintain its power any which way it can. But just like that infamous quote from Star Wars, the more you squeeze your power, the more systems will fall out of your grasp. I think that's what Leia said to Darth Vader. I think I probably got that wrong.
Russ isn't here, so there's no one here to confirm.
He would know to check.
He would know.
All right. All right, so I guess is that one wrapped?
Yeah, that's a wrap.
Keaton? Okay, all right, so
Put
we
it in
can
the
wrap
can.
that one. Yeah,
Print
I'll do a couple of more announcements, and then Keaton, we can get. Then Kit, then we can get to yours, I believe. No, I don't want to spoil yours, so I won't say it, but I'll say a couple of announcements if you need to get.
CJ, while you're doing that, I got to duck out for 1 minute. I'll be right back. Okay.
Do you? All right,
Okay.
so we're taking a short break for announcements and a little bit of a break for Keaton. So let's let me put him on.
Sure thing. Well,
mute.
I actually got an announcement.
Okay, go ahead.
So on tomorrow's show, Craig Jardula, who was recently in Lahaina, is going to be on my show, and he's going to be talking to me about what he saw there in the Lahaina community with the aftermath of the devastating wildfires. Looking forward to having him on the show. We're gonna have, of course, always our morning show Tuesday 9 a.m. Central. So if people want to tune in, check it out, join in live and direct. It's going to be an interesting story, especially with the aftermath and finding out just how the people of Lahaina are recovering. They only got a one-time $700. Compton. That's one time $700. That'll go a long way
for
for
everything.
them.
Yeah, that should pay for
absolutely.
everything.
Absolutely, indeed.
Yeah. So, all right, let me show this here. Now, if you go to our website and you click on RBN merch, this is what pops up. And just so I finally checked the numbers, and this is our most popular item on our website. Not this color necessarily, I believe it's black, but our regular RBN logo is the t-shirt is the most popular item that we sold on our website, and then it's the NATO mug. So I thought I would show everybody. So if you went to our website and you clicked on RBN merch, you can check out all of our merchandise. This is just one of them, our most popular ones. This is the most popular. That's the one I'm showing you. Navy blue. It comes in like an off-white or beige, and then a regular white, then a gray or silver, and then a black. I believe the color black is the most popular. So check that out on our website. I'll have that scrolling across the bottom in just a second. And Kit, are you ready, or you want me to go with a couple?
Oh yeah, no. I'm ready to rock and roll right now. So I think it's only fair that I should get ready to lead this segment off and get started. So let's get started. Well, Keaton, CJ, everyone in the viewing audience, get ready for fear. Stop thinking for yourselves. Stop having the audacity of thinking that your vote is yours, because actually it belongs to somebody else, okay? And as we have progressed forward, as we have covered this election cycle, because let's face it, 2024 is just months away. We still got December. But already corporate media is doing what I knew they would do, and that is wrap up the fear tactics to causing people to lose their ability to think critically for themselves. And who else to lead us into this world of fear than Simone Sanders herself? Good old Simone Sanders, who did so many mental gymnastics, both mentally and physically, in 2020 to protect Joe Biden. Never forget, this is the same Simone Sanders who was just Bernie Sanders. And don't worry, Bernie Sanders never got compromised. But already, folks, they're already saying, and this is her own quote, in 2024, if neither candidate gets 270 electoral college votes, our antiquated system, did you know that the House decides who the president is by majority delegation? And guess who's in majority of the House? The Republicans. Well, big whoop. Now, I think all of us have been very critical about the independent and third-party candidates and how they could have done more, or maybe have not been as lackluster. But nonetheless, it would be a sight to see if one of these candidates were to potentially pull off the unthinkable, that is, maybe secure 1 or 2 electoral college votes. Now, that's a very big, high probability. The establishment won't let that happen, but if that scenario were to happen, it would be unheard of. And I think the only boon for us as people who are post-duopoly, people who are, I think at this point, burnt out by electoral politics, is that it could energize people to get more actively involved in politics, and maybe go for supporting citizen ballot initiatives. That's the one boon. So let's get ready to laugh and enjoy the fear, as Simone Sanders tells us that we have to be afraid, not think for ourselves. So here she is. She's going to tell us that. Hold on. Here's Simone Sanders. Don't think for yourself. Just shut up and follow orders.
We are 50 days away from the Iowa caucuses and more than 340 days away from the 2024 presidential election. As we get closer to Election Day, there is growing attention on how third-party candidates could impact the race. So let's take a trip down memory lane to 2016. During that election year, third-party candidates collectively won around 4% of the vote in Pennsylvania.
Oh, what a night.
4% of the vote in Michigan.
Wasn't that beautiful?
Combined, this accounted for more than
Kit was eating
100,000 votes. Which
New York strip.
Oh,
you know
what? You know what? Not only was I eating
cocktail.
Not only was I eating it up that night. I mean, I was probably the only person in my social group that wasn't having a mental breakdown. Like, oh no, Trump is winning. Who cares? I'm actually impressed with these numbers. But here's the thing: Jill Stein gets vilified, but I wish people would acknowledge that. Hey, Gary Johnson of the Libertarians took actually more away from Trump. I mean, he was far more successful and at least gaining more votes than Jill Stein did in 2016. Jill Stein becomes the villain because she's more Democrat adjacent, I guess. But looking at these numbers, this is fantastic to see what the Greens and Libertarians were able to pull off. And I wish that they actually kept their act together after 2016, because maybe they would have had much more of an infrastructure. But this is something I want to see, and more so during the 2024 election cycle, so that we could see maybe a rise in more support. And already, look, we made it abundantly clear. I made it abundantly clear how I feel about RFK Jr.'s independent run and Dr. Cornel West's run and the Green Party and the Libertarians. I mean, they could have done so much more and maybe not been so cringeworthy and I guess shooting from the hip. But nonetheless, it is what it is. But this vilification of what happened in 2016 is the media's attempt to make people feel bad about what they did and how they used their vote.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. You remember that day? Sorry, I don't mean to step on the segment, but this is worth a quick diversion. True story. So in 2016, my brother was in college as the votes were being counted. And he was sitting in this auditorium, all of like a few hundred college, libs were packed into an auditorium watching the results come in, and it was obvious Trump was going to win. And the room was just absolutely stunned, silent. People were absolutely traumatized. They couldn't move. They couldn't talk. They were just shell-shocked. There was this one MAGA kid at the school. Like, he's the only one, because all these colleges are like 90% Democrat, right? No, so there's this one MAGA kid who gets up. He leaves the room for about an hour. He comes back. The room is still stunned, silent. Nobody has saying this. You could hear a pin drop in this fucking room. He comes back with a bottle of champagne and pops the cork in the middle of the room, and it echoed throughout the room. It was like fireworks going off when the cork, boom, and just started chugging the champagne in a room full of like hundreds of shell-shocked kids. Yeah,
you know what would have been a great send-off for that? It's like that scene from Day of the Dead of when the army captain gets ripped apart by the zombies. Imagine him being ripped apart by the liberals. Like, choke on it, liberals, choke on it. Let's continue on because it gets better. It gets better. Simone Sanders goes off on the deep end. Was this one?
Which was enough to sway the presidential race and hand Donald Trump an electoral college victory. So just imagine the impact that third-party votes could have in next year's race. Let's face it, folks. There are Americans out there who don't want to vote for Republicans and they don't want to vote for Democrats, and it does show in the data. Gallup actually found that 63% of American adults currently agree with the statement that the Republican and Democratic parties do, quote unquote, such a poor job of representing the American people that a third major party is needed.
I would go further, like maybe a fourth, fifth, or sixth. But to quote Jesse Ventura, when he talks about third parties, because we got to be clear here, because we have to give a proper analysis and use these as references. He said it best. If there was a third party or fourth party, instead of a two-headed monster, we have a four-headed monster. So we have to look at the other initiative, and that is calling for citizen ballot initiatives to abolish all political parties. Right. And while the founding fathers had their faults, Washington and a lot of the more diehard, founding fathers who believed in not having political parties were absolutely correct, because when you have a political party, the party is always going to put its interests before the nation and the people. And when you have independence, you have more diversity, you have more people, more the governance of the nation, and the continuation and protection of the people. That's the whole point of it. Now, I do like seeing these numbers. It's talking about adults, but let's also add in young people. Young people have seen firsthand how the Democratic Party and the Republican Party has screwed over their communities and their families for generations now. Gen Z and the next generation following afterwards. No one's going to be a diehard loyalist. The only reason why the Democrats and Republicans have any relevancy whatsoever is because they have enough sycophants and people who are brainwashed into believing that their vote matters to the two-party system. Now, this crop of independents and third-party candidates, I got to be real with you, I think they may not follow through with what I want them to do. There is potential, but I think that we could be seeing that initial push for real involvement by people to finally break the system that we have at hand. And again, it's what we're going to see here more so from Simone is, don't be afraid because Republicans and Trump. I'm not afraid of a Trump presidency, and no one should be afraid of a Trump presidency. I'm not expecting anything to change drastically under Trump. What we saw under Trump is what we're going to get for probably another 4 years. But it's not my fault. It's not Keaton's fault. It's not the viewing audience's fault. It's not CJ's fault that the Democrats never followed through with their promises. Because if they did, they wouldn't be in this situation. So in other words, why would anyone with a rational mind waste their vote for the Democrats when the Democrats will constantly lie? Let me just play a little more of this.
Let me state one part here. So before you play, so she's basically identifying a problem, Keaton and Kit. She's saying, in this democratic society, you guys are saying you don't want this. So obviously they're gonna go, well, since the people don't want it, let's do something different, right, Kit? That's what she's gonna say, right?
Yeah, okay. and so hold on. She's gonna go further, because it's sort of like, oh no, Donald Trump, the orange boogeyman, woogie boogie boogie.
Look, I do not doubt Gallup's data, and I don't doubt the people's preferences. But the chance of a third-party candidate actually winning the presidency in real life, it remains highly unlikely. So is a third-party candidate really a threat to Joe Biden or even the Republican frontrunner Donald Trump? Well, I spoke to the senior communications director of Third Way, Kate DeGruyter, earlier this week. And I just got to play for y'all what she had to say about a strategy that the No Labels movement could use in order for Donald Trump to win in what she calls a chaotic and dangerous way. Take a listen.
What we think their new plan is to try and win a handful of states in order to force a contingent election, basically to deny either Biden or Trump a path to 270 votes. If that happens, that is likely to trigger the 12th Amendment that would throw the vote of the 2024 election to the House of Representatives. In that crazy scenario, what would happen is the House would vote by delegation. Right now, Republicans control 26 delegations. So a House vote would mean Donald Trump would win in the most chaotic and dangerous way possible.
Let me reiterate for you. If neither Donald Trump, if he's a Republican nominee, nor President Joe Biden get to 270 electoral college votes, then the Republican Congress, under the leadership of Speaker Mike Johnson, a chief cheerleader of what unfolded in the lead up to and on January 6th, they will decide who the next president will be. And if that happens, let's just be very clear. They're going to choose Donald Trump. Please tell me again how your vote doesn't matter.
Okay, yes. All right, Simone. We're going to pause you there. So let me just break this down simply, okay? Democrats, liberals, latte drinking liberals, the vote blue no matter who brunch. And yes, even diehard Republican red voters. Both parties had numerous opportunities to get rid of the Electoral College, an antiquated system that has its that has its origins based in slavery, for the slave states to exist and for the free states to exist. We are the only superpower that claims to be a democracy that has this antiquated system. Normal democracies, normal republics have a thing called popular vote, which, surprise, surprise, the person who wins the most votes becomes the winner. And we don't have the electoral college. They don't have that. We do. So in other words, it is not my fault that the establishment system created this nightmare. And so if independents, let's say RFK Jr., Dr. Cornel West, Dr. Jill Stein of the Green Party, and whoever the Libertarian nominee is going to be, let's say each of them were to win an electoral college vote, however impossible that might be, that would upend the system. But it's not their fault should they win those electoral college votes, because guess what? A person who's going to vote for any of those candidates, or be it Biden or Trump, that vote goes to that person. If you're going to vote Republican, you're voting Republican. If you vote Democrat, you're voting Democrat. Voting independent, you're voting independent, third party, etc. Your vote is going to that said person because they earned your vote. That's politics 101. And the media, realizing that Joe Biden is going down the toilet and Kamala is plummeting even further faster because Trump is systematically leading Biden in the polls right now. Now, anything can happen between now and election night in 2024. But as it stands right now, Biden is losing at all fronts. He has lost the black vote. He has lost the Arab vote. He has lost the Muslim vote. He's lost the LGBTQ vote. He's losing young people. Biden and the Democrats did this to themselves. So all those groups that I mentioned and other groups as well, they're looking for alternatives, and people want something fundamentally different than what we've been getting these past decades. The Democrats aren't delivering. The Republicans aren't delivering. Corporate media sees that Joe Biden is failing. The Democrats are not going to take the initiative and get rid of Joe Biden as a nominee. So they're stuck with that old dog. So in other words, because of Biden's inability to be a leader, and because clearly he's showing dementia and Alzheimer's, a voter with a rational mind will want to secure their vote with somebody that represents their values. Now, ballot access is going to be a whole other story altogether. But should the independents and third parties pull this off, then it is a voter's right to use their vote how they want. You can't spoil something that's already spoiled. All right. And these other candidates are not stealing independent and third party votes. They are earning that vote. And none of us should be shamed or bullied into how we're going to use our vote. Hell, it's completely rational for voters to not vote at all because, let's face it, electoral politics is burning out a lot of us. This election cycle might be the last election cycle I'm going to vote in because I am just done with it. I am done with whatever the politicians are going to be throwing out there. And I expected a lot more from the third party and independent movement. And I think we have to look at maybe this being the last big hurrah and finally focusing on state issues and state citizen ballot initiatives so that all 50 states can decide their own destiny and not wait on Washington, D.C. to never deliver like they've always have. So that's all in this video here. Simone Sanders bullying you and telling you to be afraid and not think for yourself. So that's what we're getting from her. Be afraid, don't think, and look out. It's Joe Manchin. Look out. It's RFK Jr. Look out. It's Cornel West. Look out. It's Jill Stein. Look out. It's libertarians. Because if any of those people get in power, it's going to help Trump. Or if you put your vote to those people, you're going to help Trump, which is propaganda and a lie. And no, I'm not going to waste my time for it. So, gentlemen, any kind of words?
Yes. So vote shaming is here. Vote shaming arrived early. It seemed like vote shaming for 2024. It seemed like it arrived early this time around, and they've been kind of soft vote shaming. When Cornel West first kind of got in it, they were kind of soft vote shaming, but you can clearly see that the intensity as his poll numbers go down, the intensity goes up in the vote shaming, and it is very fervent on cable news, as you can see there with the Simone segment. But that's my take, guys.
Yeah. I don't know, Keaton. Final word. Give us the gut check to the.
Well, no, I mean, it's just incredible watching that. Thinking who is watching this and taking this seriously, like who. You know, first of all, I don't even understand the stakes. Like the fear mongering about Trump as the world literally crumbles under Joe Biden. Like, I don't understand how they even hold that together. Like how is that even something that appeals to an audience? It's amazing. It's really, really astounding to think that there are people who absorb that and actually feel threatened by the idea of, no labels running a candidate that peels off a state or two, which means there's no electoral college majority winner. First of all, a lot has to go right for the No Labels Party for that to even happen, right? Because not only would they had to win a state or two, right, which is very, very hard. I mean, that would be extremely difficult for a third party to actually win a state. It depends on who they run, but it's extremely difficult. And then they have to assume that those states are going to be enough, whatever their electoral vote total is in the one or two states that they win, that's going to be enough to pull either Trump or Biden under 270 votes. One other thing they should keep in mind, as of the last crop of polling, Trump is beating Biden in like 5 out of 6 of the pivotal swing states. So even if No Labels picks off a state or two, it's probably not going to be enough to pull Trump under 270 if the election were held right now. So the whole thing is just this fantastical exercise in, like you said, fear-mongering.
Let me pull up this comment here because it speaks to what you just said, and I don't know, how much of this is true, but let's bring it up. It's directly related. It's from Janice, and everybody knows Janice. She donates to all of us. What's up, Janice? Thank you for the super chat.
Shout out to Janice.
She says she's lying, and she's referring to Simone Sanders. She says, per Constitution, all candidates needs is the most votes, not the majority. The only way it goes to Congress is if it's a tie, if the two leading candidates are in a tie.
Yeah, I saw you posted that, and I did look it up because I thought you needed a majority of the Electoral College. What I just read said that you needed a majority. So you need a majority of those available. And so that's
the majority of available. So if the number has fallen, it's still whatever the majority electoral college vote. So
so it says here, the person having the greatest number of votes shall be the president if such number be a majority of the whole number of electors appointed. In other words, it needs to be a majority, not the plurality, which in this case would mean 270. Now, the reason they say it goes to the House in a 269 tie is because in a two-party system where it is assumed that either a Democrat or a Republican will win every state, the only way in which no one gets a majority is under a tie. But what they're saying is that if, say, No Labels picks off a state or two, then you can win a plurality of electoral college votes without crossing the 270 threshold.
Right.
So there's my source right there. I just looked that up because
there you go. You did your own research. How dare you, Keaton?
I'll be really sneaky. See, here's my source right there. Everybody can see that very clearly, right? Okay.
Using the interwebs to get sources and stuff. All right, gentlemen, unless you had something else.
Well, because that's the kind of thing that never comes up because it's a two-party system, so it never comes up, right? Because whenever you assume that it's going to be whenever you assume it's going to go to the House, it's because it's a 269 tie. With only two candidates, that's the only way that's possible. But with three, it's possible for one candidate to have the lead, but not the majority.
And so these segments are set up perfectly. So we go in from that when we're talking about electoral politics. And now let's go into this video that talks about RFK could be on the debate stage. And I've seen several segments where they're like, yeah, RFK, he's polling as such, consistently polling and nationwide now that he's an independent, that this guy, he could likely hit the threshold to be on the debate stage. And it hasn't happened since Ross Perot, but go ahead, Kid, before we
and look, I think we all have our criticism for RFK Jr., but it would be a sight to see. But I do want to tell everyone, again, ballot access is going to be key because you could be on a debate stage, but writing one person's name in each state is different. And ballot access, ballot access. And this goes for all candidates from Dr. West, Jill Stein, whoever the Libertarian nominee is going to be. If you're not on the ballot, well, then you might as well kiss your wazoo goodbye. I mean, yes, you can make it on the debate stage, but if you don't secure that, then then you're not going to gain any
This
kind
is-
of
this is
favorability
why-
whatsoever.
This is why I say people should not look at the independent candidacy of Cornel West and the independent candidacy of RFK as the same. They're not as the same at all.
No.
You have one that's going to get 8% of zero because they don't have the infrastructure to get on any ballots, not any ballots that's going to
Precisely.
matter. Right.
Precisely.
So, and then you
Precisely.
have a guy who is still down with Israel, and maybe this is the reason why I'm giving him the benefit of doubt that he's just not a terrible person, but you know, that he's going to have the ability and is already raising money, is going to have the ability to raise money, especially from those sort of like non-establishment libertarian sort of leaning billionaires and millionaires. He's going to get money to be able to pay people to get on ballots. Like we always say here when Keaton is here, we're talking about 500,000 signatures just in Texas and California alone.
Right.
You know what type of how many people you need on the ground to collect those type of signatures in a particular amount of time. So they're not built the same. I absolutely believe that a RFK independent candidacy would do a lot better. If not just, maybe I'll just say a better, not a lot. I'll take a lot out.
I think
Better
it'll
than the
supersede
Cornel
what
West.
I think it'll supersede what West and Dr. Joe Stein of the Green Party can do, because I already know at this point the Libertarians have secured about 40 states as it stands right now for ballot access. RFK Jr. could pull it off. The Greens and West, though, it'll be a miracle if they're able to pull it off. And you know, you mentioned California and Texas, and I'll just end it here. But in Illinois, my state is notoriously corrupt, and the Illinois Greens and the Illinois Libertarians have to get at least, at the bare minimum, 50,000 signatures just to secure a candidate to be on the ballot. That's how tough my state is. And if you don't dot your I's right, if you don't cross your T's right properly, then that name is gone. And there's been so many times when the Illinois Libertarian Party and the Illinois Green Party has gone to the Illinois Supreme Court just to fight to have their candidates on the ballot. There's never been a time when they didn't have to go ahead and file with the Illinois State Court, or state courts. I mean, apologies for that.
Yeah, I've seen a documentary on the corruption of Illinois and Chicago. I think the governor is just like, I've seen it.
One.
I feel for you, my brother. But let's move right into this next segment. It's connected to this last one, and that is RFK possibly being on a debate stage in the general election. We already kind of started, but this video talks about two things. It talks about that, RFK being on a debate stage, but then they also bring in this other part. If you look at the caption there, it says, where Chuck says, I guarantee Joe Biden will not debate anyone. This is the first time I'm hearing. I mean, we all talk about this. He's not going to debate. Look at his condition. This is the first time I'm hearing. And to me, this is somebody with at least credibility in the establishment. If he's saying this, to me, it has a little weight. So let's listen a little bit to this video talking about that. Let's listen.
That of power in politics and the latest on the state of the 2024 race. The Commission on Presidential Debates announcing Monday the dates and locations for 3 presidential debates between September and October and 1 vice presidential debate. For more on the announcement and how polling could impact the debates, I want to bring in NBC's chief political analyst, Chuck Todd. Chuck, I want to start with some numbers that caught our eye in first read. According to NBC News polling in a head-to-head match, a generic Republican is up 11 points over Biden, and a generic Democrat is up 6 points against Trump. And then there's this. The New York Post is reporting that RFK Jr. could be.
That's a devastating poll because it's side by side, and it's indicating that Biden is doing worse than Trump, even though both of them lose. I mean, a lot of polls, a 6% gap would fall within very close to the margin of error, if not in the margin of error. Whereas I've never seen an 11-point margin of error. So this is a clear win, and this is closer to the margin of error to me. All the signs are saying Joe Biden should drop out of the race, but they're not. He's not taking heed to that. Go ahead.
All the signs are also showing that people don't want to see Biden versus Trump again. 2 old men fighting over a cold bowl of soup.
True.
No one wants to see that.
All right, is reporting that RFK Jr. could be the first third-party candidate to reach the debate stage in more than 30 years.
Let me read the caption and just think about what he just said there. But the headline there from the New York Post on the screen: presidential debates set for Texas, Virginia, and Utah as RFK looks to be first independent on stage in 3 decades. Wow.
Yeah, since Ross Perot. Ross Perot was in the debates.
Yes. And I remember that. I was very, very young. But I remember it because I remember my parents. My dad was the political one. We hear him talk about the news and the things that's going on in the world. And I just remember the sentiment about that race being that people felt like the candidates had to pander because there was a third party there instead of the normal sort of GOP and Democratic lines. I remember that sort of being out in the air at the time. But I don't think I've seen either of you do a segment on this particular news story that RFK. Oh, you have. So then tell me what you think about RFK or the possibility of him making the stage before I continue with the video clip here.
Well, okay, so RFK Jr. being on the debate stage, excluding my criticism of it, I think it would be something that the American people haven't seen since Ross Perot, and he very well could pull off, maybe not get an absolute win, but enough to secure enough votes to be on par with what Jesse Ventura did in Minnesota, because he was viewed as a joke candidate by both the Democratic and Republican establishments at the time when Jesse Ventura was running for governor. And as soon as he was able to make it on the debate stage, he single-handedly defeated both those candidates up there and won the governorship. Now, winning a governorship and winning the presidency are two different things altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And the establishment has made it abundantly clear how they view RFK Jr. on some of his other stances. He's already their villain, and they don't like the fact of what he could do potentially to both Biden and to some extent Trump, even though the establishment has its problems with Trump. RFK Jr. being on there is a moment in history because we've never seen an independent third-party candidate be on the stage, save for Ross Perot, who, mind you, was proven correct about NAFTA. People laughed at him when he made that vacuum cleaner noise. People aren't laughing now. So there is some historic things to take away from this. But could he win enough votes to secure the presidency? I don't want to say that on this network or even on my network, in regards to what he can pull off.
I hear you. All right, so let's get back to the Case Study QB clip, and shout out to Case Study for clipping this clip from the cable news network. Let's listen.
To make the stage, candidates have to reach at least 15%.
Let me just stop here. I need to just see this number. Let this set in.
Damn.
With Robert Kennedy in the race, look at the distance. So do you think he's taking from Joe Biden or Donald Trump more than the other? Maybe it's even, because with him not in the race, isn't it very similar numbers in some of these battleground? I mean, I've seen 11 points in Nevada, but I've seen as little as 3 points. But so maybe the middle is around 6 points, is bearing out about the same. So maybe he draws, if we're using their language. It just means there's another person in the race that that he fits better than fits 16% of the people better than if he was not in the race. But let's play a little more, and then Keaton, if you want to chime in, sir.
In national polls. And right now, according to Real Clear Politics and their average, RFK Jr. is at 16.7. So first question is simple. Could we see 3 candidates on the debate stage next year?
In theory, we could, but not if Donald Trump is one of them. I think if Donald Trump is a Republican nominee, Joe Biden's not debating. And I don't know if Joe Biden's going to debate anybody, but I'm pretty confident, and I say this not as just some willy-nilly prediction, Tom, but I'm pretty confident that the White House has no interest in ever debating Donald Trump again.
Then why?
Okay,
why
so
was
why would Chuck Todd be so solid, Keaton and Kit, in his? Oh no, this is never happening. with
well,
if
this
Donald
is
Trump
what makes
there.
the
Go ahead.
RFK question interesting. This is what makes the RFK question interesting, because if RFK doesn't qualify for the debate, right, so he's not eligible to debate, that makes it very easy for Joe Biden to just say, well, I'm not debating Donald Trump, in which case there will be no debates, right? If RFK does qualify for the debate, then Joe Biden can't really duck the debate, because if Joe Biden doesn't want to participate, at that point it's RFK versus Trump on the debate stage. And that puts Joe Biden in a very, very difficult spot. Because how are you going to win an election when you're not participating in a debate that is ongoing, where it's Trump and RFK? At that point, that's a major boon for RFK. And that's pretty much Joe Biden's candidacy just going up in smoke right there. So if RFK qualifies, then Biden really has to debate. If RFK doesn't qualify, then Biden can duck it. So that's where, from a horse race standpoint, this does get a little interesting.
Could you imagine, though, what if he were to lose the election? Let's take RFK out. It's just him. If he were to lose the election and not have debated, like, how would they not blame it on him not debating? Like, I know they will find a way. Believe me, I understand. They will find a way to say, hey, it's something else, just like they said with Hillary Clinton. But I don't see how they would not be able to debate that, to say it wasn't the debates, that him not attending the debates. Now, if they add RFK, could you imagine RFK, Donald Trump there, both arguing against funding Ukraine, and then Joe Biden is the lone one saying we need to fund Ukraine? I would love to see. That's what I would love to see.
Well, look, absolutely. I mean, that's a good point too. Like, Biden going up against RFK and Trump presents a problem for Biden as well. But I just can't imagine Biden skipping the debate if RFK qualifies, because at that point, Biden is just ceding so much support to RFK by not showing up, because then in the voters' minds, this is not a race between Biden, Trump, and RFK. It's a race at that point between RFK and Trump, since they're the ones who showed up. And as to this question, is RFK going to take more from Biden than Trump? I think he will hurt Biden in the end more than Trump for two reasons, and I've said this a few different times. But first, Trump's base is much more loyal to Donald Trump than Joe Biden's base is to Joe Biden. So Joe Biden's voters are more available to a third-party candidate than are Trump's. And second, RFK, with a couple of notable exceptions, is pretty much a mainstream liberal. Like, on a lot of issues, he's a liberal. He's called the NRA a terrorist organization. That's a non-starter for half of the Republican base right there, right off the bat. He's pro-choice. He's an environmental lawyer. Like, he is mostly a liberal. And so at the end of the day, why would a Trump supporter vote for RFK if Donald Trump is on the ballot? Why? There just aren't as many of them as those who maybe are would-be Biden voters who want a more attractive option than Joe Biden. And that's why, if RFK qualifies for the debate stage, Biden has to show up, because if he doesn't show up at that point, he's going to be ceding a lot of ground to RFK.
Absolutely.
I also want to pull up something else here too. The only other time there was a debate, safer, was Ross Perot. In the 1980 presidential debates, there was Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, and John B. Anderson. And it should be pointed out that Carter didn't participate in the first Baltimore Convention Center, the first debate. He was absent. Anderson and Reagan debated. And that was for somewhat of a small boost for Anderson's campaign. He was running as an independent. Second debate, it was Carter versus Reagan, where Reagan obviously demolished Carter, and Anderson was not present. If there is to be a debate between RFK Jr. and Donald Trump, I think not only would it hurt Biden systematically, but I mean, there's no way he could recover from it.
No, it would eliminate him. It would eliminate him.
And the thing is too, and I'll just ask you to this right now. Can even Biden debate at all? Period. Let's say there's going to be a debate. Can he even hold together a coherent sentence against two people who I'll make the argument. Look, I got my criticism of Trump, and I can make fun of him too. I could make my criticism towards RFK Jr., but they're going to run circles around Biden. He can't he just can't. He doesn't project confidence or intelligence. Biden is just not all there. He's going to be stuttering, stammering, and it's going to be embarrassing and cringe to watch.
Yeah, let's listen further to what Todd says. And I was just surprised when he said it. He was so like saying that he knows this is sure.
Yeah,
Let's
very,
hope
very
it's one of them.
confident.
I think if Donald Trump is
That's
a Republican nominee, Joe Biden's not debating. And I don't know if Joe Biden's going to debate anybody, but I'm pretty confident, and I say this not as just some willy-nilly prediction, Tom, but I'm pretty confident that the White House has no interest in ever debating Donald Trump again. And I know in talking with some people over there that they feel comfortable with that position if they end up making that. I don't think they don't have to make a final decision. They don't know who the nominees are going to be. But they have noted that Donald Trump didn't do any of his debates. So
how are they going to say that when Joe Biden didn't do any of his debates in the primaries too?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, what does
Their
that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a ridiculous.
Exactly. Number one, it's
idea.
apples and oranges. You're comparing a primary debate to a general election debate. And number two, you're right. Biden skipped the primary debates as well.
Yeah, so he did do that. But point taken,
why
Chuck.
should
Good try.
he feel any pressure to do general election debates that he's involved in? So that's why I think it's a huge caveat here. Donald Trump's a nominee. We're not having normal presidential debates. I promise you that.
But you also said, and this is a lot, I mean, for viewers who may be hearing this for the first time.
I'm just so, I can't get past, why is he so confident? Who
He's
has
probably
he talked to
people,
where
you
he
know,
knows?
Well, they all know each other.
These
They
are
all know each
Washington-based
other.
reporters. He probably has the ear of some people who are telling him that.
Yeah. Now, this is one of those things where you're trying to say, well, we don't know if he's going to debate. Yeah, you are saying he's not debating because if you look at the poll numbers on who's going to be the GOP candidate, you know who's. So if you set this sort of marker, you're essentially saying I'm not debating, and I'm telling you up front now, and it's because, and don't think that anybody's going to buy that it's because he didn't debate in his primary. Everybody's going to understand it's because you clearly have lost a step cognitively and you're afraid to go against him. I think it's going to backfire. I don't see this ending up well for them at all. So let's listen to a little more video. Let me know if you want to stop. We're a little less than halfway.
I know this has been reported out there, but if you have, say, a Nikki Haley or a Ron DeSantis, you're also saying
those
there could
two,
be
they're
a
not going to
chance
make
that
it.
the current President Biden, will not attend the debates.
Yeah, I think there's a strong chance of that. I don't know what the debates are. When you're the incumbent, doing a debate, you do because you have to, not because you want to, right? That's number one. And the minute you do it, you have leveled the playing field. Well, if they're concerned about his ability, about his nimbleness, and you look at the way
this is so.
That's not true. I mean, it's just absolute bullshit. You do debates as a matter of course.
Right.
Does,
It's tradition at this point. I mean, I don't want to use that argument. Usually candidates debate. I mean, it's been happening since I was a kid. I've never seen where a president refuses to debate.
No, it never happens. Obama was beating Romney by a mile. He debated him, and then he had a bad debate, and Romney almost caught up to him. Bill Clinton was beating Bob Dole, who's blowing him out of the water in 1996. There was no way Bob Dole was ever going to win that election. Clinton debated him, right? I mean, it's normal. It's normal. It's unbelievable how they just say whatever the fuck they want, and their audience is so stupid that they just absorb it.
That's
no matter
what they're also trying to do. I think in many ways what Todd is trying to do, and failing, by the way, is that Trump has made it clear he hasn't participated in the Republican primary debates. In many ways, that's boosted him up more so than participating, right? And what Chuck Todd is saying, well, Biden can do the same thing too. No, Biden can't, because Biden can't pull in a crowd like Trump. Biden can't pull in the numbers like when Trump was being interviewed by Tucker Carlson. He can't do that. And so they're trying to project this and failing miserably at the same time. So for all the vote blue, no matter who sycophants, if you're believing this, fine. Have the rubber meet the road.
if there is going to be a debate, and let's say RFK Jr. is going to be there, Biden has to show up. If he is as sharp as people say he is, he has to be there to project the confidence so that all of you can be proven correct. But since none of you want to take that risk, you want to say, well, he's not going to show up. He's not going to debate Trump. Well, then fine. That's going to be plenty of political ammunition for Trump and anybody else that's running against Biden in 2024. And I'm just going to sit back and relax and laugh at the show while the Democrat ship sinks further and further to the ocean. Bottom of the ocean, that is. Sorry about that.
Do because you have to, not because you want to, right? That's number one. And the minute you do it, you have leveled the playing field. Well, if they're concerned.
Now, this is the part I just want to not rewind it because I want everybody to hear this part again. This is a window into confirming that they understand that Joe Biden has lost a step. So them projecting, this is just an age, they're both the same. They clearly know that they're both not the same. And you listen to the little words they use. Nimble. These are substitute words they're using to describe his obvious, visible cognitive decline that nobody wants to use that language. So they use these sort of niced up words. And he uses nimble in another word in this instance. Just listen closely.
About his ability, about his nimbleness. And you look at the way they protect him now and how, little even regular media interaction he has. I just, the debates didn't go that well the last time, but Donald Trump was the meltdown when it, and that sort of grabbed a lion's share of the attention. Look,
isn't that? But I mean, Chuck, as somebody who talks
around the president,
Chuck, you're somebody who talks.
He wants to debate,
right.
Tom. By the way, for what it's worth, he wants to debate. Nobody around him wants him to debate.
Yeah, as somebody who talks a lot about the process, right, about the democratic process.
What value, Keaton and Kit, is it to say that the 80-some-odd-year-old man who has dementia wants to debate? What good is it to say that the guy with the tinfoil hat over there in the corner wants to debate? What good is that to add that? For what it's worth?
Yeah, I think they're trying to have it both ways there. I think they're trying to have it both ways there. They're trying to paint it. Whereas no, Biden's good to go. Biden says he's good to go. He's the pitcher who wants the ball, right? But it's just the coach saying no. We don't have to do it.
Wait a minute. So hold on. Look, and maybe this might have been jet lag impacting him, but remember when Biden flew out to Vietnam and when he was having that horrible press conference? You know what Biden said to the entire press conference? I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to go to bed. That's Joe Biden, our president.
Yeah, I'm going to go to bed.
I don't know about you guys. I mean, I've heard my elder relatives say that. God rest his soul. My grandpa would sometimes say the same thing too when we had dinner events. He'd be like, with his family, like, hey guys, I don't know about you, but I'm going to sleep.
All right, that's enough.
When you're at that age and you say that, does that project confidence? That's blue. That's your dog in the race? Bernie, AOC, you gave your integrity to endorse that guy right off the bat? He could debate Trump. Well, gee, maybe Chuck Todd's onto something. Maybe if you want to save yourself embarrassment, don't have Biden debate Trump. I mean, there you go. He'll have more dignity. But he's going to have to do it. If he's going to be their nominee, he has to debate them, whether they want it or not. You could drug him up as much as you can. It's still going to be one big shite show.
I can't imagine that he's down in the polls in these battleground states, clearly, and he's like, I'm not going to debate. That would be just weird to me, and it would have a reaction even from establishment Dems as what the hell are you kind of doing, Joe Biden?
Don't you think the voters deserve a debate?
Well, yes, I think debates are a good thing. I think candidates worry about debates too much. I think that, the fewer debates you have, sometimes the more the more importance they take on. I think 3 or 4 or 5 debates in a series is a healthy way to see everything. And I think I do think they're very important and very relevant. I don't think Donald Trump, though, treats the process with the same reverence that you and I are talking about, though, and frankly, any other candidate has ever done.
No, I get it, but then if President Biden, I know we're speaking in hypotheticals here, if President Biden doesn't attend a debate, chooses not to, I mean, you're going to have that same conversation with President Biden, you know, and I got to ask you, I mean, it's going to be strange now if you have a debate and the Democratic candidate's not there and somehow a third party candidate like RFK Jr. is on the stage with
That's
Donald
not
Trump.
unprecedented.
I have
Tom?
no idea. Yeah.
It's actually not unprecedented. So in 1980, Jimmy Carter refused to debate Ronald Reagan. Did not want to debate Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan accepted a debate with John Anderson, who was the third-party candidate that year, and he had done well enough to qualify for the major presidential debates.
And what happened to Jimmy Carter?
Yeah, then lost in one of the most historic landslides ever.
And in history. And there's a very good possibility.
Clowns.
And there is a very good possibility with the amount of failures surrounding the Biden-Harris administration that Trump could win an absolute landslide victory too.
Hey, Jimmy Carter skipped the debate. You know, hey, it worked out good for him. Yeah, it didn't seem to hurt him at all.
Yeah, I don't understand. What are you proving by saying that?
That's
Jimmy
a great
Carter
re-election
did
campaign
this?
to model yourself after. Is the Jimmy Carter's re-election campaign? Yeah,
And you know what? If we were to compare his candidacy to anyone, I would say it is Jimmy Carter. I would say it is Jimmy Carter. It's kind of where people already felt like, man, this guy may not have a good chance here.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was already a feeling.
He's definitely the weakest incumbent since Jimmy Carter from a horse race standpoint. Yeah, no question about it.
Absolutely. And any final words on this before we close this segment? And I think that might be our final story.
Yeah, I think that has everything, right?
Yeah, I think that's our final story. But if not any last words on this, then let's go to some super chats because a lot of them are related to what we were talking about. And it might be some questions for you guys that you guys want to answer. Let's start at the bottom.
Okay.
This is Roger Meadows saying this. Damn, I wasted money. What Keaton said
He's talking about the research that I did on the Electoral College. That's when that came
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. But thank you, Roger,
Shout
for
Roger.
Yeah,
Right
he has another one. I'll show it in just a second. This one from John Freeze. It says, so the Dem strategy is to make you feel like you're going to the principal's office if you don't vote for them. Essentially, that's what their vote shaming is, I would say. Thank you for that super chat, John. This one here from 007 Angelo. Hats off, Kit. It says, Bub would be better press than Biden. Who's Bub?
You're talking about Bill Clinton? You're talking about Bubba? They used to call Bill Clinton Bubba.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's
or maybe saying I would be a better president than Biden. Well, of course I would be a better.
Maybe saying you, Bub. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations, man. You made it my administration. Well done.
Yeah. And shout out to Thomas Ramirez for being a brand new member to the RBN community. This one here from, I think that's Sacker. Okay, so Sacker Pappy. Two-state solution is a reservation at best for Palestinians, a zoo at worst. Sorry for the harsh words, but there's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think that's too harsh at all.
I don't either. And then we got a couple of super stickers. Thank you for that super sticker. And I think that's Samar. Thank you again for this super sticker. Another one from Samar again. Here goes Roger Meadows. I think this one's for you, Kit. That was not just me, Kit, but me and Lucy.
He's referencing the video when they confronted Jamaal Bowman.
Right.
Yes.
I need that video, Roger. Send it back to me again if you can.
Absolutely. And then this last one again, shouting out Abiding 71, always showing all the lefties in this space a little love, gentlemen. What's coming up for both of you? When's your next show? I know when your next show is, but I ask always so that you can announce it to the audience. When's your next show? When you're gonna be live again? Do you want to announce any sort of actions that are going on in your area? Like if there's another protest that's happening in your area, you want to announce or anything else? We'll start with Kit, then we'll go to Keaton.
Sure. Well, Harlan's Media, we're live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Central. I'm really grateful for everyone tuning in. It's been a rough 2 months for yours truly, but on tomorrow's show, Craig Jadul Apostle will be joining us. He'll be talking about his second time visiting Lahaina, the aftermath, how the mayor apparently, because he posted on Twitter, how the mayor snubbed them. And didn't show up. So I'm looking forward to hearing what's happening to the people of Lahaina so that we could find out more what's going on there. Same time, too, working on a few other projects later on this year. I'll have a big announcement that I have to make that'll kind of change up how Heartlands Media does the show. But nonetheless, we're looking forward to having an awesome show tomorrow. And just a huge shout out to this wonderful community. And it's good to be back on the Post-Opoly Show. I missed you guys a lot. You guys have been killing it.
Yeah,
So keep on pushing forward. Don't you stop.
And yeah, we missed you too, man. Yeah, we're on again on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's just Russ and myself on Wednesday nights. And then we got, I think, a pretty big show on Sunday. We got Matt Taibbi coming back for a second time on Sunday. So that should be a really fun one. But we are on, Wednesday nights, Friday mornings, and Sunday evenings as well. So that's the schedule. And we're telling everybody to join our Substack now because we're starting to write articles again because Taibbi actually was really cool and shared Russell's last Substack article. And so that brought in this big influx of Substack subscribers. So now we kind of have a built-in Substack audience. So if you want to read some of our writing, since we're going to start writing again, do dissidents.substack.com.
Awesome.
As they should.
Yes.
Good to read every once in a while. Too much of this YouTube rots the brain. Too much TV. Got to read a little bit too.
Right on. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to put you in the back and I'll close out the show with a couple of announcements. And hopefully we're able to do this again in a couple of weeks here and get back here. And hopefully Russell and Nick will be able to join us for the next episode. But thank you, guys. Let me actually put you out and put you my graphic here. So I just wanted to show this one more time. This is our is it in? Yeah, this is our merch. So if you go to our channel, our logo is the most popular item that's selling on our channel. Our website, revolutionaryblackout.net, revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com, and then you click RBN merch. It brings you here. You can get it in silver. Nick, this is the one Nick bought, and it's in red. This is the one that he is now his profile picture on Twitter. A lot of you, it went viral, like 1,100 likes. So check it out on Twitter if you want to see what it looks like on someone. You can check out Nick's picture. I think I might get the green. I was thinking of the red, but since Nick has the red, just so we have different colors, maybe I'll get the green. If you're interested, make sure you check that out. We do got 3 more super chats, so I'll read those now before we get out of here. 3 more super chats here. It says Rockfin. Yes, that was Rockfin. Roger Meadows. I kind of thought that. And then it says Kit. Bub, the zombie from Day of the Dead. Oh man, I wish he was still here because I know he would be like, oh, you're talking about that. Okay, because we were completely off but what you were referring to here. All right, I think. Oh, this one here from Sam. You see the Israeli comm director statement about Borskin. No, I have not seen that yet. Possibly, maybe that'll be a segment if it's really outrageous. I'll check it out. It was something else I needed to show you before we hit that like button on your way out. And here is this is what I meant to do. We're calling for producers. So if we're looking for volunteers who want to be producers for our podcast shows. We're looking for a team so that maybe you do it once a week, so we can get like 5 volunteer producers to help with these shows. Maybe do 1 stream a week that you just kind of help out run the stream. If you're interested, the email is below. Email us here at info@revblacknetwork.com. In the subject line, put podcast producer or just producer. Also, we're looking for somebody to volunteer to run our newsletter. And the newsletter will be pretty simple. We just put a bunch of things together every week and we send it out to everybody that follows us, probably on our Substack and then our other mailing list. So if you're interested, email us, info@revblacknetwork.com. In the subject line, put newsletter or administrative. Newsletter or administrative for that second part. All right. And then the last thing before I get out of here is our Patreon. Become a member of our Patreon. $3, as low as $3 a month is our lowest plan on Patreon. And this is the best way to contribute to us and also to Erin, our only employee, Erin. And some of the things that she's going through, she could really use the help. So make sure, if you're able to contribute, whether donating or becoming a member, please do. And that's going to do it for Mizzy. Let's go to Twitter for the closeout. When we have 3 people, the show is a lot shorter. The show, typically, we have to cut stories and it goes all the way to 3 hours. But with 3 people instead of 5, we were able to get through the stories a little bit quicker. But I do want to see if there's anything breaking that broke while I was streaming. That's Scott Ritter. Oh, some announcements. Scott Ritter hopefully will get confirmed this week. He's going to let us know tomorrow. Already confirmed. Margaret Kimberly. I believe Shama Sawant is confirmed. And Glenn Greenwald. So those are some guests that we're looking to have this week. So make sure you get on our Substack so that you're able to get those notifications. Let me put up our website up here. Here's our Substack first. And here is our website. And yeah, what is this? This is JB saying something about it wasn't just Hill Harper they offered money to. I was offered $20 million to withdraw from the senatorial race and to run against my friend Rashida Tlaib. I guess it was some other people. There's Sabby with this one. RFK Jr. tells young voters absurd to call Israel a apartheid state. I guess he says this on Cuomo. He goes on Cuomo. That's Glenn Greenwald. Like I said, Glenn Greenwald will be on RBN later. I believe he's on here Thursday. We have Glenn Greenwald. Here is the Gray Zone with that article. That's an older story, earlier last week. There goes Misty. We reached out to Misty to fill in for Nick or Russell, and she was not available. She was already doing something. And then remember when Wonder Woman was putting on the propaganda film showing? Well, empty seats and no Hollywood stars at that screening. And there's the headline there. Any other items? There's Cornel West, completely underwhelming to me. Just completely off that guy. Here it goes. Medea. Let's see what Medea's saying here.
Advisor for Senator John Ossoff from Georgia. And we thought it was really important to come here because in 2021, after the assault...
Ceasefire. She's talking about ceasefire here. Let's see. Prisoner swap. Just not... yeah. Prisoner swap will be covered by somebody else. I'm not covering the prisoner swap. It's like whatever. To me, let's listen to this. Everybody's talking about this.
To withdraw from the senatorial race and run against my friend Rashida Tlaib. The pro-Israel lobby will go to any length to remove anybody from the U.S. Congress that has any opposition to their agenda and their total, unequivocal support for Israel, good, bad, or indifferent. We need to make sure that money is not the main catalyst to get people elected, because the pro-Israel lobby is only tool, and what they use to threaten politicians is the amount of money they're going to spend against them or for them. America, let's come together and elect people who truly represent our values and not those of special interest. AIPAC, keep your money in.
Wow. Okay. Let's keep going. All right. I don't think there's any breaking news, so I think I can get out of here. There's nothing major, which I was looking for. But as we share earnings at Thanksgiving dinner, he's making another faux pas. This one here. Let's check this video out. Let's listen. I think I'll use this to close out. Let's use this video to close out. Thank you for watching, everybody.
On the one hand, you have some Palestinian prisoners and minors and women who are being released from Israeli jails. And then on the other hand, the raids and arrests continue right across the occupied West Bank.
That is correct. If you look at what is happening now, what's been happening over the past few days, for every family that is celebrating the return of a loved one, there is a family that is suffering the detention of someone. In harsh terms, if you look at what's happened with regards to the swap deal, is a numbers game. The Israelis have released 117 Palestinians in the last 3 days. And in that same time, they've detained 116 new Palestinian prisoners in areas across the occupied West Bank. There have been raids ongoing since last night into this morning. They really haven't stopped ever since the war began. They've intensified. They were ongoing before the events of October 7th, but just in the last 24 hours, overnight, 64 people have been detained and are now in Israeli custody. So these raids, these detentions, this pressure being brought down on the occupied West Bank has not stopped as part of Israel's occupation in these territories. And to that end, these have also been incredibly deadly. At least 239 people have lost their lives in the occupied West Bank, where there is no Hamas, since the events of October 7th. Israel often identifies itself as the only democracy in the Middle East. But in parallel, it has to be remembered that Palestinians living under Israeli occupation live under a military rule that exists in parallel to what Israel sees itself as in terms of its democratic values, as it proclaims to be.